RC. NLM.
NLM.
OD.
OD.
Slick.
Slick.
I will provide current and predicted teaser status for safety and launch agency constraints with the probability of violation.
This is the OWO. This briefing will be displayed on CCTV channels
Bonjour à
9 and
tous
10,
les
beginning
amis,
with
j'espère
channel
que vous
9.
m'entendez bien. On
Current
se retrouve
satellite
aujourd'hui
loop
pour
indicates upper
un
clouds
tout
over north
nouveau
central California,
live sur la
with low
chaîne.
clouds over
Le
Vandenberg.
lancement, le dernier
Current
lancement
radar
de la
loop
fusée
indicates
Delta
no
2
return over
du
station.
constructeur United
Winds
Launch
at
Alliance
102 foot
pour
level on Tower 102
l'opérateur de satellite
show winds out of the
ICESat, donc
northwest at
le
340
satellite
degrees
ICESat
at
2.
14.6 knots.
Donc je vous ai mis toutes les
Turning to
infos,
channel 10.
les principales infos concernant ce lancement dans la description. Il s'agit du coup du dernier lancement de la Delta 2, de son, j'ai plus le nombre en tête du nombre de lancements. J'ai mes petites fiches qui sont avec moi. Il me semble qu'il y avait plus de 150 lancements, quelque chose comme ça, 155 lancements, donc ils sont 156e et dernier lancement aujourd'hui auquel on va assister donc pour la mission ICESat 2 qui consiste à étudier tout simplement les changements d'élévation de la calotte glaciaire et de topographier les sols et la végétation sur la Terre, à une orbite assez proche, une orbite assez basse, hein, quand même 496 km d'altitude, donc voilà une orbite très très basse, donc lancée par cette fusée Delta 2, donc dans sa configuration 73-20-10, donc la configuration la plus basse, avec 4 boosters latéraux, un premier étage et un deuxième étage, voilà. Et il faut savoir que cette fusée est une fusée très célèbre du programme américain, puisqu'elle a lancé excusez-moi pour le bois, elle a lancé des missions très importantes, très phares du programme spatial américain, comme Mars Odyssey, Mars Pathfinder, Phoenix Lander, le télescope spatial Spitzer et Kepler plus récemment, donc c'est quand même une fusée qui a une certaine renommée dans le domaine de l'aérospatiale américaine, et elle prend du coup sa retraite aujourd'hui, voilà, à l'occasion de ce dernier lancement pour ICESat. Salut Ellie, en mode cas aujourd'hui qui est présent, c'est pas une Falcon 9, bon bah au revoir. Salut Dame. J'espère que vous allez bien de votre côté. Je vois que vous likez le live, donc je vous remercie. J'espère que ça va pour vous. On a eu des grosses news aussi hier du côté de chez SpaceX, même si là on n'est pas sur le lancement SpaceX, mais il faut en parler quand même, comme quoi un premier contrat privé aurait été signé avec un homme. On a peut-être des sources pour que ce serait un asiatique qui voudrait prendre place à bord d'une BFR un peu revue avec 3 ailettes au lieu de 2. Ça fait beaucoup penser à une navette spatiale américaine dans la config dans laquelle on la trouve, et c'est une mission qui pourrait arriver en 2020, donc pour un voyage autour de la Lune. Donc voilà, apparemment il y aura une grosse annonce lundi, et malheureusement c'est dans la nuit de lundi à mardi pour nous à 3h du matin, c'est 19h à Los Angeles, donc si vous rajoutez plus 9h ici, bah malheureusement on n'aura pas l'occasion de voir ça. Voilà, c'est 18 ou 19h, quelque chose comme ça. Donc là vous avez la configuration du lanceur, donc la 74-20-10C, je me suis trompé, autant pour moi, mais c'est à peu près la même config que la 73-20-10. Donc elle peut porter jusqu'à 2 tonnes 2 en orbite basse, jusqu'à 2 tonnes 2 en orbite basse. Donc du coup il faut que je le modifie moi dans ma description, mais bon là on a 2 tonnes 20, c'est ça. Donc le satellite fait à une charge de 1 tonne 380. Ça ne va pas être un live aussi cool que ce que présente SpaceX, mais ce sera quand même un beau lancement. C'est un beau lancement, malheureusement c'est un lancement de nuit parce qu'on est à Vandenberg, hein, si je dis pas de bêtises, oui on est à Vandenberg, donc on a moins 9h, donc il est 5h du matin, 5h20 sur la côte ouest américaine. Essayez de baisser le son du live pour qu'on t'entende mieux. Ah, excuse-moi, j'ai baissé du coup, merci de me le dire. N'hésitez pas à me dire lorsque vous m'entendez moins et tout. Là j'ai baissé, est-ce que c'est bon pour vous? Lui on dirait vraiment un suppo quand même, ouais, c'est vrai qu'il a une forme un peu étrange, mais c'est une fusée quand même, il faut savoir que c'est une fusée qui est en service depuis 1989, hein. Donc c'est une fusée qui est assez vieille, c'est pas une fusée, c'est une fusée moderne, mais c'est pas une fusée contemporaine. Donc là ils vont vous expliquer un petit peu ICESat 2, alors moi j'avais pris des images, des vidéos, etc. de mon côté, avec le profil de la mission, mais je pense que tout va être expliqué là, par nos chers interlocuteurs de la NASA et de ULA, de United Launch Alliance.
using lasers that pulse more than 10,000 times per second. The data collected will allow scientists to analyze where.
Donc c'est un satellite qui avait utilisé des lasers. Il y a une vidéo qui était sortie sur ça pour mesurer en fait le niveau d'élévation, enfin le niveau de la calotte glaciaire, donc les pôles. Elle va analyser aussi du coup les mouvements des eaux et aussi surveiller la topographie terrestre, donc tout ce qui est arbres, forêts, un peu tout ce qu'on connaît sur Terre déjà. Ouais, nickel, bah merci. N'hésitez pas à partager le live autour de vous, on y dit c'est pas beaucoup, je sais qu'il y a SpaceUtility aussi qui fait un live de son côté, donc c'est vrai qu'il me prend pas mal de viewers, mais bon, c'est un très très bon streamer, hein, c'est un très bon youtubeur, j'aime beaucoup. Et normalement dans la semaine vous allez avoir une nouvelle vidéo, ça y est enfin on s'y remet, une vidéo sur Ariane 6, donc pour ceux qui aiment beaucoup les lanceurs européens, qui aiment bien Ariane Espace, l'ESA, vous allez être servis, parce qu'il y a un épisode sur Ariane 6 très complet, vraiment on parle pas que d'Ariane 6 dans cette vidéo, vous allez voir il y a pas mal de choses, et voilà, donc les épisodes vont reprendre doucement, sachez que moi de mon côté, j'ai eu ma reprise scolaire, etc., étudiante, et c'est vrai que j'ai beaucoup de choses à faire, donc j'ai pas toujours le temps de vous proposer du contenu, mais je vais quand même essayer d'être régulier, hein, parce que si vous êtes abonné, c'est quand même pour me suivre, et en particulier pour le contenu spatial, donc on va essayer de ne pas déconner cette année. Je dis bien essayer. Alors qu'est-ce que je peux vous dire moi sinon, je vais voir si je peux trouver des vidéos, un profil d'émission, je pense qu'on va en reparler. Sachez que le lancement est dans 23 minutes encore, donc si vous avez encore un truc à faire de votre côté, vous avez le temps, on a un témoin 23 minutes si je dis pas de bêtises. Donc voilà, le lancement c'est pas pour tout de suite, hein. Vous pouvez me poser des questions, si jamais vous avez une interrogation sur le lancement en tant que tel. Sur l'objectif de la mission un peu plus approfondi, moi je pourrais vous répondre. Salut Super Thomas 5, comment vas-tu? Tu fais quoi comme étude? Je débarque complètement sur cette chaîne, je cherchais un live pour la dernière de la Delta 2. Bah super, bah t'es sur la bonne chaîne. Bon, disons que SpaceUtility il est plus calé que moi parce qu'il s'y connaît vraiment plus. Donc les explications je pense pour lui ça serait mieux. Mais c'est vrai que moi j'aime bien streamer ça, j'ai quand même préparé pas mal de petites fiches aussi. Donc moi comme étude je suis en bac plus 4 actuellement, en tout ce qui est supply chain management, donc voilà, logistique, appro, achat, tous ces domaines-là vraiment qui sont importants maintenant pour les boîtes aujourd'hui pour être tout simplement pour réduire un maximum leurs coûts. Donc je suis en alternance, je suis dans une école de commerce et voilà. Ça va nickel. Merci Thomas, ça va nickel, c'est le week-end, il y a un lancement, il y a plein de choses là qui se passent au niveau du spatial, il y a beaucoup d'actu, des actus très croustillantes, notamment de chez SpaceX, donc il y a beaucoup de choses qui se passent, donc c'est cool. Disons qu'on va pas s'ennuyer là cette semaine. Donc on est à 21 minutes du lancement, on est vraiment bien. Donc là vous allez avoir l'explication, il va en fait avoir une orbite assez polaire hein, quand on regarde. Donc en étudiant le pôle nord, le pôle sud de plus près. C'est vrai que j'ai pas mis exactement la localisation de l'orbite dans la description, j'ai mis beaucoup d'infos sauf ça. Donc là vous voyez un peu mieux comment l'orbite elle se définit, elle se traduit sur une vidéo de simulation.
About the time NASA's original ICESat mission ended, we began Operation Icebridge, the largest airborne survey.
Donc ça c'est au pôle sud, hein, si je dis pas de bêtises. On voit déjà les problèmes du réchauffement climatique, hein, toute la glace qu'ils font. Donc ça c'est un vrai enjeu aujourd'hui, l'environnement.
These flights will provide annual look at the behavior of rapidly changing features of Greenland and Antarctic ice. This airborne research has been critical for ensuring a continuous series of observations of Earth's ice. When paired with the last 15 years of data gathered from the original ICESat and now Operation Icebridge, ICESat-2 data will allow scientists around the world to track historical trends. We're now a little more than 19 minutes away from today's launch. Let's review some quick facts about
Si vous avez des questions, n'hésitez pas, surtout dans le chat est fait pour ça. Donc là vous avez le préassemblage dans la coiffe du satellite, et là le satellite en action sur des images de synthèse, des simulations vidéo. Donc ça c'est une Delta 2, vous voyez là, mais config plus haute avec 9 boosters. Donc on verra 10 000 lasers par seconde, donc c'est énorme.
The fast-firing laser will allow us to measure the average annual change in the vast ice sheets down to the width of a pencil. 9 years of data from Operation Icebridge will be added to
Donc il va rester 9 ans, la mission va durer 9 ans, si je dis pas de bêtises, hein. Ou cumulé entre les deux satellites de ICESat.
That's the precision at which individual laser photons will be timed as they complete their round-trip journey from the satellite to the Earth and back. 7 kilometers per second is how fast ICESat 2 will zoom above the planet. It'll complete an orbit around Earth in 90 minutes. The orbits will converge around the poles, focusing the data in the regions with the most expected change. 6 laser beams split from one on board ICESat 2. That's 6 times the beams of the original ICESat. More beams will cover more ground, or ice, and allow scientists to assess the slope of the surface they're measuring. 532 nanometers, the wavelength of the bright green laser. When these laser photons return to the satellite, filters block any light that's not exactly.
Je vous laisse un peu écouter parce qu'il vous explique tout.
4 times a year, every 91 days, ICESat 2 will measure the same ground tracks, allowing scientists to see how glaciers and other frozen features change with the seasons, including over winter. A 3D look at Earth, now with more height. ICESat 2 will measure elevation to see how much glaciers, sea ice, and ice sheets are rising or falling, and give us a more complete picture of our planet. There are 2 types of ice that ICESat 2 is after, land ice and sea ice. Land ice builds up year after year from snowfall, but sea ice forms when the ocean water freezes. It can last for years or just one winter. Only one instrument, but it's a really good one. The Advanced Topographic Laser Altimeter System, or ATLAS, was built by hundreds of people at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center to exacting requirements so that scientists, very soon, can measure minute changes in our planet's ice.
All Delta missions dating back to the first Delta launch in 1960 have been numbered. Today's final Delta II launch is carrying the number 381, signifying that it is the 381st flight of the Delta family.
Donc c'est le 381e lancement d'une fusée Delta, hein, tout Delta confondu, vous savez qu'il y a les Delta 2, c'est les premières, les Delta 3 qui sont une sorte de Delta 2 un peu améliorée, et une Delta 4 c'est la fusée lourde hein, qu'on a vu lancer surtout la sonde Parker Solar Probe, les Delta 4 et Delta 4 Heavy, qui ressemble beaucoup d'ailleurs à une Falcon Heavy, la Delta 4 Heavy, dans cette configuration là à 3 premiers étages. Donc c'est le 381e lancement, dont le 156e lancement d'une Delta 2, donc c'est presque la moitié en fait de l'ensemble de la famille Delta.
The Ice, Cloud, and Land Elevation Satellite 2, or ICESat 2, will measure the height of a changing Earth, one laser pulse at a time.
Donc là, Jim Bridenstine qui parle de la mission, l'administrateur de la NASA.
About the elevation of ice sheets, glaciers, sea ice, and more. One of NASA's most important missions is to utilize space to understand and explore our home planet. NASA's observations of Earth's complex environment are
regardez ça, la fonte de la glace, quoi, c'est impressionnant. C'est impressionnant, en même temps c'est désolant. C'est vrai que c'est un phénomène qu'on peut même plus contrôler, quoi.
Covering Greenland and Antarctica from year to year. That's about the width of a pencil. This data will help scientists investigate why and how much our cryosphere is changing in a warming climate. The satellite will also measure height changes across Earth's temperate and tropical regions and take stock of carbon stored in forests worldwide. Many scientists, engineers, and technicians have worked for years to make ICESat 2 a reality. I want to thank the NASA and commercial teams that have made today possible. Their dedication and commitment to advancing American leadership in science and space exploration is greatly appreciated.
We are now about 14 minutes away from today's launch. Let's go back to NASA's Joshua Santora and Mick Waltman to carry us through the remainder of the milestones.
Hey, thank you, Stephanie. Yes, we are now at L minus 14 minutes and about 20 seconds and counting. Yes. T time of 4 minutes and 20 seconds and counting. We're actually about to enter our final built-in planned hold. Right. That will be at T minus 4 minutes. And so this is a chance again to kind of do final polls and make sure that we're ready to proceed with the terminal count.
Salut Zorak, comment vas-tu? Donc là vous avez...
T minus 4 minutes and holding.
4 minutes and holding. Again, the L time continues to count towards that 5:46 liftoff time.
Toujours 13 minutes 52 du lancement, je crois pas pourquoi il y a le T-Time 4, est-ce que c'est peut-être le dernier moment où ils font leur vérif, ou au moment où le lanceur, je pense, il est entièrement automatisé par les procédures enfin, qu'on connaît.
Verify everything's within specification. They're working nothing that they're worried about to get to a T0. So that's what these holds are for, right? It gives them some extra time to just evaluate and assess anything that they're doing. Yeah. We've actually had 3 holds this evening, going back to our 60-minute hold early on.
And Mick, we actually have coming up in just a second, we've got our NASA launch manager Tim Dunn.
Absolutely.
I hate to cut you off, but I want to make sure we can listen in.
Je vais essayer de vous trouver des images.
Hold the NASA team to make sure that we're in good shape to move forward. It should be coming up in about 4 seconds. He should kick this off. He's a pretty punctual guy.
Yes.
Parce que là pour l'instant ça parle pas beaucoup, je vous avoue.
So I'm not sure what exactly is happening. I don't want
je peux pas vous montrer une vidéo directe, c'est un peu bête ça. Pourquoi je ne peux pas.
Kick things off here. In addition to his poll, a big reason for his poll is that he's actually going to be reporting out in the primary poll, the last poll of the day that happens at L minus 7 minutes. So he's polling the NASA team so that he can be accountable and report out to the NASA launch conductor, who's United Launch Alliance's Scott Barney.
This is the NLM. Stand by for the final.
And here we go, Tim Dunn, our NASA launch manager. Poll.
We have a situation with temperatures of helium and nitrogen, bottle temp on second stage. Working that issue right now.
So it sounds like Tim's going to
j'ai une bande à droite là, ça fait moche, faut que je l'enlève ça.
Sounds like the team may be working some bottle temperature issues.
Ça me fait ça,
we'll hear a little bit more about that once the team evaluates that. Again, that's exactly what these holes are built in for, is to give the team a chance to look at those things, make sure they come within their requirements. So we'll kind of keep an ear out and see when Tim comes back for that poll.
Yeah, while we're waiting, I want to go ahead and actually throw to a profile video, a launch profile video we've got from United Launch Alliance.
Ah bah voilà, on va avoir la vidéo de profil de la mission, comme ça c'est ce que je voulais vous montrer, mais voilà. J'espère qu'il va nous la balancer. Ouais, c'est ça. Donc là vous avez le profil de la mission, comment ça se passe. Là c'est un lancement lambda, le lancement classique d'une Delta 2, donc notamment un 4 booster. Hein. C'est ce qu'on va voir juste après. Dans 10 minutes.
Shortly after liftoff, Delta begins a pitch over to attain the proper flight path while minimizing the pressure the vehicle experiences during flight. The Delta 2 reaches Mach 1, the speed of sound, at 30 seconds. At 1 minute 23 seconds.
Donc en 40 secondes, elle atteint Mach 1, Mach 1, ce qui est énorme. Ensuite, il y a la séparation des petits boosters. Ensuite, coupure du premier étage. Ensuite séparation. Le deuxième étage qui va prendre le relais. Ensuite séparation de la coiffe.
Now enter a coast phase for 36 minutes, 41 seconds. At 47 minutes, 33 seconds into flight, the second stage engine is reignited for a second burn.
Et ensuite un réallumage, alors je ne sais pas si j'irai jusque là dans le live, dites-moi hein, si vous voulez qu'on aille jusqu'au bout. Parce que là ça va durer au moins longtemps, hein, entre le moment où il va atteindre l'orbite souhaitée, et là encore ça va, c'est pas une orbite trop haute, mais c'est une orbite de 496 km. Ah oui, il y a aussi des cubesats qui vont se déployer. Donc des cubesats qui sont embarqués sur le satellite ELFIN. Il y en a 3. Même 4, il y en a.
Alright, so Tim, we're still waiting on
On a 9 minutes du lancement.
He will be coming in at some point in the near future to update us, but for now we're gonna kind of just we're gonna move into a holding pattern on our end just to kind of wait and see what they're doing, because obviously we're taking our cues from the launch teams today. Launch teams being a big topic of what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've said we a lot. I want to talk a little bit about the launch teams that are out here. We've got Northrop Grumman, which is the spacecraft side. They constructed the spacecraft. Also Goddard Space Flight Center from NASA, a big part of that, the science there. We've got the U.S. Air Force. We have NASA Launch Services Program. And then we also have the United Launch Alliance. Obviously, it's their Delta II this morning. So what all are these teams doing to kind of bring this together?
So you're absolutely right, Joshua. We use we a lot when it comes to launching a mission, and it does take a huge team effort. As you outlined, 4 major team players here for this mission, this final Delta II historic, starting with Northrop Grumman, who not only built the spacecraft in their Gilbert facility in Arizona, but they worked with Goddard Space Flight Center, who built the Atlas instrument that we heard about that's on the spacecraft also. They also, Northrop Grumman provided the graphite epoxy motors, the 4 GEM or solid rocket motors that are on the Delta II today that are there. The range, our partners at the United States Air Force, they play an important part in tracking the vehicle and providing personnel safety around the area for the launch. That's a huge thing that needs to be accomplished to make mission success. And of course our ULA and NASA teams, both the engineering and management teams are present today. Both teams work very close together to make sure all the systems on the vehicle are operational, configured, working properly, they understand.
Je vois que vous arrivez un peu plus nombreux sur le live, n'hésitez pas à liker, partager le live, commenter, enfin poser des questions dans le chat. Je suis là pour ça, là pour l'instant je laisse vraiment, on a vu l'ensemble des enjeux de la mission, à savoir les objectifs et les applications du satellite une fois lancé, et puis le profil type d'une mission, de la mission en fait. Donc ça va durer pas mal de temps quand même. Je pense qu'on a au moins pour 45 minutes encore. Le temps que toutes les séparations, les différentes étapes du lancement, puis que le satellite soit enfin en orbite. Ça va mettre pas mal de temps, pour être honnête.
Causes ultimately it's steam, right, Mick? That we're seeing?
Yeah, it's a cold temperature difference there as we talked about cryogenic loading the first stage. That's a very cold liquid oxygen going into there, and the vent valve, as that liquid oxygen boils off, the vent valve opens up and releases some of that pressure in the tank. So that's what we see blowing around there, and of course also the thermal differences from the outside air on the tank with the ice buildup. So that's
steam,
pretty
probably
normal.
The wrong word to use to describe that.
Not steam, just kind of thermal changes.
There you go.
Like kind of like when you're outside cold and you see your breath. That's kind of what you're seeing here with the liquid oxygen temperature coming off the vehicle.
Sure, and you can see the L time and the T time. It looks like they're working on resetting those clocks now. We're running at about L minus 22 minutes and counting. And so, again, like we mentioned, that T time is a built-in hold right now. And so that will remain at T minus 4 minutes and holding, again, until that L time gets down to 4 minutes, and then we'll continue on. So I think that aside, we're continuing on with kind of the schedule as usual.
On a nouvelle date de lancement, 21 minutes. Il y a un report. Il y a un premier report. Parce qu'on devait avoir le lancement dans 6 minutes et finalement c'est dans 21 minutes. Donc déjà, première mauvaise nouvelle. Alors je n'ai pas la fenêtre de tir en tête, la fenêtre globale de tir. Jusqu'à quand, quelle date ils ont pour lancer, mais c'est un peu dommage là déjà. On va perdre du temps sur le live initial, donc le live va être pas mal plus long. Donc n'hésitez pas à vous chercher de quoi grignoter, de quoi boire pour voir ce live, à part si vous êtes en train de manger. Mais on a déjà un premier report d'annoncer. Je vais voir si j'ai des news de mon côté là. Je vais sur Twitter. N'hésitez pas à me suivre sur Twitter, sur mes réseaux sociaux, aussi dans la description. C'est important si vous voulez être notifié, si vous voulez savoir en avance ce que je vais proposer sur la chaîne.
7 miles or plus visibility. I'm very happy about that. So folks will be able to see this Delta II once we lift off this morning. But unique situations on both the east and the west coast.
Alors, est-ce que j'ai
You can have we talked about the United States Air Force range
Est-ce que
operations.
j'ai
They monitor also out in the ocean areas, because of course we're launching due south out of Vandenberg, and so we want to make sure personal safety there. So we have a box that we kind of call the box that we have to lift off and fly into, and we want to make sure that nobody's in that box. So the United States Air Force monitors that to make sure we don't have boats. You know, you wouldn't think about it, but sometimes boats get in the box and cause a delay, and we have to work around those things. But one unique thing out here at Vandenberg.
Donc normalement le lancement à 15h02. S'il n'y a pas un nouveau hold ou un nouveau report, lancement à 15h02. Désolé d'absence, j'étais au téléphone, pas de soucis Ellie, hein, tu peux parler. De toute façon là c'est assez calme, puisque je pense que tant que la fusée ne partira pas, ça sera assez calme. On a vu à peu près l'ensemble de ce qu'il allait avoir lors de cette mission, à savoir la config de la fusée, le profil de la mission et les applications du satellite et le profil de la mission. Donc on a vu à peu près l'ensemble et apparemment il y a eu un holding, donc dans 19 minutes maintenant le lancement, ça a été reporté on aurait dû avoir le lancement dans 3 minutes là, donc on a un retard de 16 minutes, voilà. C'est comme ça. Apparemment c'est à propos de la température, les équipes de la NASA sont en train de travailler, les équipes de United Launch Alliance travaillent dessus.
Before we lift off this morning, we want to make sure mission success, is number one. It's all we talk about the Delta II rocket and how historic this is being the final and how emotional we are about it and how we love.
Il y a un problème de température au niveau du deuxième étage, je crois, ou du premier plutôt. Chez SpaceX, les retards, on connaît. Mais en fait, c'est partout qu'il y a des retards. Pas uniquement chez SpaceX. Alors, petit délai pour l'instant à cause de la température. Donc là, je lis les infos de Eric Boatlander. Hein. Donc n'hésitez pas à aller le suivre sur Twitter. C'est un journaliste qui est en freelance pour le spatial. Très très doué. Il mériterait d'avoir beaucoup plus de visibilité d'ailleurs. Apparemment à propos de la température du réservoir, j'avais raison, sur le réservoir du second étage. Donc voilà. Donc c'est après 14h le lancement. Pour le moment, voilà, on a un petit retard. Gérard met la clim.
Typically those have been
LOL.
Instantaneous window when we have to hit a 1 to 2 second window, something under 15 minutes, right? With the ICESat-2 mission, as you mentioned, the spacecraft identified a 2-hour and 34-minute window. So the team had to go back and look at,
donc là, ils viennent de le dire, il y a une fenêtre de tir de 2h44. Donc si on compte à partir de 14h46, donc là on devait avoir le lancement là, ça veut dire qu'ils ont jusqu'à 17h15, 17h20 pour lancer. C'est très court, fenêtre de tir très court.
Along with the ambient air temperatures outside, the temperature of the RP1 fuel, and came up with a 63-minute window this evening. And so that 63-minute window is what we have available inside the 2-hour 34-minute spacecraft window. And what the team can do, and we've heard this just recently, is we can move that window around inside that 234. And so that's what NASA Launch Manager Tim Dunn and Launch Director Tom Heater have done, is they've reset that window to 1302 Zulu for our new T0 time.
Yeah, so we had the spacecraft requirements, we had the rocket ability and requirements, and then there's other things too that factor in, like there was an issue deep into our launch window today with some collision avoidance, or you'll hear the term COLAs. We're just making sure that on launch that there's nothing that we have a potential to impact the spacecraft during ascent, and so that actually, I think that cut off a few minutes on the back end.
It did. We heard that early on in the count that we had a slightly longer window than the 63 minutes that we're identifying. I think there were 8 COLA cutouts, what we refer to as cutouts, or opportunities that we couldn't launch. They were on the back side of that window. So the team, the launch management team, decided to narrow that window to 63 minutes based on those COLA cutouts. And those are mainly safety callouts, range safety cutouts, so that we, as you said, don't hit something in space or something that's out there once we launch.
Sure. So yeah, I want to update you all. You're seeing on screen the final Delta II mission launching ICESat 2. We are targeting, I believe we're targeting a 6:02 a.m. Pacific time liftoff. So we are at L-minus 15 minutes, 15 seconds and counting. Again, that T time is part of the countdown procedure, so we're still in a planned built-in hold of T-minus 4 minutes and holding. We'll be progressing here soon. So we are expecting now, when we get to L-minus 13 again this time around, we're going to hear from our NASA.
Ouais, c'est vrai que c'est un peu chiant en plus à meubler, parce que là j'ai pas d'autres infos à vous donner. Peut-être qu'on va, je vais essayer de vous reparler un petit peu du lanceur si vous n'étiez pas là, pour ceux qui n'étaient pas là juste avant. Donc un lanceur, eh bien, tout simplement renommé, hein, comme je dis tout à l'heure, de grosses missions à son actif. Mars Odyssey, je vais tout vous les citer, tiens, Mars Odyssey, Contour, Down, Deep Impact 1, Deep Space 1, Glass, pardon, Mars Climate Orbiter, Mars Exploration Rovers, Mars Global Survivor, Mars Pathfinder, donc beaucoup de missions interplanétaires, Phoenix Lander, Mars Polar Lander, Messenger, NIR, OSTM, Polar, Rosat, Splitzer, Stereo, Swift, Themis, USA 193, donc c'est Enroll 21, maintenant Enroll c'est beaucoup géré par les Falcon 9 de SpaceX, ils leur ont piqué le marché, ils leur ont piqué ce client là, Wind, Kepler et Wide-Field Infrared Survey Explorer, donc ça c'est toutes les missions de renommée. Ce qu'il faut savoir, c'est que la Delta 2, hein, cette fusée-là, elle a été développée à la base pour le lancement de satellites de géolocalisation, voire de GPS, construit pour l'armée de l'air américaine. Parce qu'en fait, elle a une puissance un peu faible pour se positionner sur des satellites d'une orbite plus haute, d'une orbite GTO, hein, transfert géostationnaire. Donc ça c'est plutôt pour de la Delta 3 ou même de la Delta 4, le lanceur lourd. Qu'est-ce que je peux dire d'autre sur le lanceur en lui-même? Elle a également lancé 55 satellites de télécom pour Iridium, encore une fois qui a été piqué par SpaceX. Décidément SpaceX a pris une énorme part dans le marché, mais ça je ne vous l'apprends pas. Aussi des satellites comme Global Star, donc par des grappes de 4. Donc là on en a qu'un seul, hein. Il n'y a pas de grappe ou quoi que ce soit, c'est un mono charge, un mono satellite, même s'il y a des petits 4 cubesats à l'intérieur. Je n'ai pas vu l'intérêt des cubesats, c'est pour ça que je vais essayer de rechercher un peu là. Pourquoi ils ont implanté des cubesats dans ce satellite là. Je vais prendre ma douche gros, mais j'arrive MDR, il fait chaud ici dans le sud, on tient pas. Donc. De toute façon t'as le temps, hein, d'ici là, 15h02 normalement le lancement, on a encore 13 minutes. Donc ça devrait le faire. Je vais essayer de me documenter un peu plus sur ICESat 2. Pour vous donner un peu plus de précision. J'ai encore ma petite bande noire là, c'est super chiant ça. C'est très très embêtant ça.
NASA CE, go.
SMA.
SMA's go.
SMD.
SMD is go. Godspeed, ICESat 2.
NASA MEM.
Bon, j'ai une bande à gauche, faudra que je règle ça pour les prochains lives. D'accord, c'est une petite coupure, on adore.
The NASA team is go for the ICESat 2 mission on Delta 2.
Ok, donc on est go. Alors, excusez-moi.
Awesome. So there you go, Tim Dunn concluding his poll. Not terribly long, but
quelque chose qu'il fallait pas. Hop là. De tous les points importants et il serait go pour le lancement. Donc là, on va pas avoir de nouveau hold ou de report. Là, ça y est, ça va vraiment partir dans très peu de temps. Sur leur site officiel, ils disent 5 minutes le lancement. Non, qu'apparemment ça a déjà lancé. Oui, ils sont pas à jour sur le site d'ICESat. Ils disent que ça a déjà été lancé il y a 5 minutes. C'était le lancement d'origine. Hein. Ça devait être ça normalement, mais non, ça a été reporté. En apprendre plus sur ICESat. Tiens, on va voir. Donc c'est une fenêtre de lancement de 40 minutes, ouais, c'est rien du tout. D'ailleurs je vous ai dit plus que ça, non, rien. Vous avez également observé les nuages et la terre, c'est pour ça qu'il disait cloud. Donc glace, nuage, terre. Qu'est-ce qu'on a d'autre? Qu'est-ce qu'on a d'autre à propos du satellite? Je vais essayer de trouver d'autres infos pertinentes quand même.
Yeah, as part of that hold, what you'll hear is Scott Barney talking to the engineering team, and basically everybody will be certifying and making sure that their systems are all ready to support liftoff this morning, and then he'll poll the launch management team also. NASA's launch manager Tim Dunn, launch director Tom Heater, who will give the final proceed to launch, and that will be good to hear us get through that and pick up the count at T-4.
Sure, yeah, and you are watching live launch coverage of the final Delta II mission to launch ICESat 2 into space here early this morning here on the Pacific coast. We are right now at about L-9 minutes 30 seconds and counting. Still at T-4 minutes.
On est à 9 minutes du lancement, 15h02 normalement.
This is a very choreographed process.
Donc le satellite il sera composé, que vous avez vu tout à l'heure les petits lasers dans la vidéo de présentation du satellite. C'est le laser spatial, c'est l'instrument en fait, l'unique instrument qui composera le ICESat 2. C'est un système altimétrique, laser topographique avancé, donc pour ça qu'ils ont cité ça Atlas, donc qui veut dire simplement altimètre, laser, topographie avancée, donc en anglais, qui multiplie le déplacement des impulsions laser pour mesurer l'élévation de la surface de la Terre. Les nouvelles technologies permettront à cet instrument de collecter une image plus détaillée et plus précise des hauteurs des surfaces de la Terre. Voilà, tout simplement. Après, il présente l'équipe, les différents partenaires, donc là évidemment. Je sais pas si je dû vous mettre le site normalement dans la description. Je crois que vous avez le site pour si vous avez, voilà, il y a plus d'infos dans la description, hein, si vous voulez tout simplement vous le voir de votre côté. C'est ce que je suis en train de lire. Je vais pas l'afficher à l'écran, ce serait bête. Je préfère tout simplement afficher le direct de la NASA du lancement. Et Atlas en fait est muni de deux lasers, cet instrument du satellite, donc il y a les panneaux solaires et l'instrument donc transporte deux lasers, un primaire et un secondaire. La lumière laser est à 532 nanomètres, un verre brillant sur le spectre visible, rapide et envoie 10 000 impulsions par seconde, ce qui est juste énorme, hein. Comparé au laser sur le premier ICESat qui envoie 40 impulsions par seconde, ce qui est waouh, c'est démesuré, hein. Avec cette fréquence incroyablement rapide, Atlas peut prendre des mesures tous les 2-3 pieds le long du trajet du sol du satellite. Ouais, donc il peut clairement tout cartographier, quoi. C'est très poussé. Donc en fait c'est un laser qui va traverser plusieurs lentilles avant d'atteindre la surface. Au sein de l'instrument il y a plusieurs lentilles et miroirs en fait. Et ça permet de diviser le laser en 6 faisceaux. 6 faisceaux distincts.
Go. Prop 2. Go. PEA. Go. PEA. Go. VP. Go. SCM. Go. SYS. Go. FAC. Go. ATC3. Go. Timer. Go. HYE. Go. FMA. Go. SSC. Go. SSC.
Bon, on est à peu près bon, hein. Ça va partir. C'est une bonne nouvelle.
Go. ATC2. Go. VSC. Go. OSM. Go. FACA. Go. GE. Go. RC. Clear to proceed. NASA TM. Go. USO. Go. AC. Go. Launch Director. LC, you have permission to launch. Proceeding with the count. Note to personnel, switch to channel 15 after liftoff is confirmed for pad securing.
As an observer, like, it just gets your heart racing, it gets you a little bit excited.
Yes.
All good sounds.
All good sounds.
C'est stressant parce qu'on sait pas si ça part pas avant d'avoir fini tous les checks des procédures. Voilà, après ça parle de photons dans le descriptif de l'instrument Atlas, donc c'est un peu technique, je ne m'y connais pas trop, je préfère ne pas vous dire d'anaïs.
L-5 hours, 30 minutes.
NSC reports spacecraft is configured for launch.
Roger. LC spacecraft is configured for launch.
Roger.
That's another major milestone for the team, is spacecraft has been verified that they're configured for launch, meaning they're on internal power. They've switched from ground power at the pad to their internal batteries, which means they are now ready to proceed and get onto orbit. That's a huge milestone. So again, excitement here that we've gone through the polls and heard the team's ready, the spacecraft team's ready, the team's coming together, and we're looking forward to getting into the count here in just under a minute.
Yeah, so again, we'll be coming out of this the T-minus 4 minute
hold,
built-in planned hold. As part of a normal countdown, a choreographed countdown, it's only 10 minutes long. Today we went a little bit long. That's part of the plan. That's okay. That's what it's there for. And so we'll be coming out of that shortly. A pretty active last few minutes. You'll get a chance to hear some of the verifications of various systems being ready, making sure that everything is, it's really just a confirmation of everything being ready.
The team's finalizing their configurations. Things are going to move pretty quickly here as soon as we come out of the hold. And as I said, they're just finalizing.
Je crois qu'on est 14-15, merci à vous, ça commence à augmenter. N'hésitez pas à vous abonner, à liker le live, à le partager à ceux qui kiffent l'espace. C'est toujours bon, c'est pour moi. Et voilà, un nouvel épisode sortira cette semaine, un épisode spatial donc sur Ariane 6 pour ceux que ça intéresse. Donc abonnez-vous si vous voulez pas louper ça. On est à moins de 4 minutes du lancement. Donc on va faire, le lancement sera à 15h02, 15h03 approximativement. Donc là on a un T-time et un L-time tout simplement identiques. Je pense que le T-time c'était le hold et le L-time c'est le launch time tout simplement, sur lequel il faut se fier. Genre si on a des news sur Twitter quand même.
It's dear to your heart that comes up here in these last few minutes. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, we're hoping to hear over the net here Greenboard, which is a throwback to our Apollo.
Et c'était une fenêtre de tir de 63 minutes pour être précis. Donc je me suis trompé tout à l'heure. Alors qu'est-ce que j'ai d'autre à vous dire?
Awesome. So the other thing that's going to happen here is that when we get to after launch, you're going to hear Patrick Moore's voice. He is the United Launch Alliance launch commentator, and he'll be walking you through the first 11 or so minutes of flight. It's a very active 11 minutes.
So we just got confirmation from Tim Dunn, our NASA launch manager. He reported to Tom Heater, launch director, that NASA is go for launch, and all vehicle configurations
are 2 minutes 30 du lancement.
Getting ready to support this 602 liftoff.
Yeah, absolutely. So in these first 11 minutes, you'll hear Patrick Moore talking about, we have the booster jettison, we have the first stage completion, and that jettisons. We have the second stage ignition, as we saw in the profile video. Right. There's a total of 4 burns of the second stage this morning, and then we'll have the payload fairing separate, and then the second stage will shut down for the first time, and that's all done in about 11 minutes, which sounds like a lot of time and no time at all.
It moves pretty quickly. Once the vehicle lifts off the pad and gets on its way through ascent, you know, the first stage does its job, and the GEMs, the graphite epoxy motors, and they separate and come off. The RS-27 throttles down, and then the stage 1 separates from the whole stack. We then have payload fairing jettison, and then second stage engine start, or S1, and that'll fire, getting ICESat 2 into its initial orbit, and SECO 1, or second stage engine cutoff, for our coast phase over Madagascar, and getting ready to pick up telemetry there, and then getting ready for that second burn, for that basically a 6-second burn, just to get ICESat 2 where it needs to be going in that polar, almost nearly circular
on se rapproche petit à petit, ça y est.
92 degrees inclination over the poles. So.
Yeah, we're at T-minus 1 minute and counting. We're going to let you just enjoy this. Again, you're watching live coverage of the final launch of the Delta II, lifting ICESat 2 into space this morning.
Water flow. 45.
LC, launch and able to flight.
Flight.
ATC-3, main power disable on.
On.
35.
Hydraulics are go.
30.
Status check.
Go Delta 2.
Go ICESat 2.
20. 15. 14.
Allez, on est à 15 secondes.
12,
Ça va partir.
10, 9, 8.
Je vais augmenter les sons, je vais couper mon son le temps des premières secondes de décollage et après on se revoit juste après.
Liftoff of the final Delta II, launching nearly 3 decades of science research and exploration missions, lifting ICESat 2 on a quest to explore the polar ice sheets of our constantly changing home planet.
Now 27 seconds into flight. 30 seconds in, Mach 1, Delta 2 is now supersonic. Continuing to see good chamber pressure on the RS-27.
Ok les amis, donc on n'a pas eu un gros son de flamme, un gros son de boom, hein, mais là la fusée est déjà supersonique à Mach 1. On a des caméras infrarouges normales, il fait nuit, et on a aussi une vue informatique, donc issue du même type d'image qu'on a vu juste avant sur le profil de la mission. Donc là, pour l'instant, la fusée est supersonique. La prochaine étape, c'est la séparation des boosters, hein, des propulseurs latéraux. Donc simplement des propulseurs latéraux. Si vous voulez, je vous dis, ça s'appelle comme ça. Donc là, on doit être déjà... Ouais, on a eu ça y est, on a la séparation des boosters, vous venez de les voir. Séparation des boosters d'un point latéraux. Là, j'ai vraiment un souci au niveau du cadrage de mon live là. C'est affreux, j'ai des bandes noires sur les côtés. Je vais essayer de régler ça parce que là c'est clairement pas possible. Je vais essayer de faire un truc. J'espère que ça vaut pas. On va faire comme ça. On a toujours les mêmes bandes. En fait, les bandes, je pense qu'elles viennent de chez eux. Oui, ça vient de chez eux en fait. Par contre, du coup, vous avez plus le plein écran. C'est génial. Voilà, c'est ça que je veux. Tac. Donc là, on va attendre maintenant la prochaine étape qui est la séparation du premier étage. Hein. Tout simplement la coupure du moteur puis la séparation du stage 1.
2 minutes 45 seconds into flight, continuing to see good performance on the RS-27 main engine and good chamber pressures on both veneer engines as well. Vehicle body rates remain very stable. Now passing 3 minutes into flight. Continuing to see good ullage pressures on the fuel and oxidizer tanks. Good fuel and oxidizer inlet pressures as well. And now 1 minute remaining until MECO. Three minutes, 30 seconds into flight.
On est déjà à 3 minutes 30 de lancement.
RS-27 continuing to perform well. Stable chamber pressure and fuel and oxidizer injector pressures, and seeing good stable pressures on both veneer engines. Now passing 4 minutes into flight. Approximately 20 seconds remaining until engine cutoff.
Bientôt avoir la coupure du moteur principal du premier étage. Vous voyez, la flamme est beaucoup plus dense, beaucoup plus grande. Évidemment, elle est bien plus haute, la fusée maintenant. C'est dommage, on n'a pas le compteur de vitesse et d'altitude. Ok, coupure du moteur. Coupure du premier étage.
And now 4 minutes, 45 seconds into flight. We've seen good separation of stage 1 and 2 and good ignition on the second stage. 4 minutes, 55 seconds into flight. Chamber pressure on the AJ-10 looks good. Body rate's looking good. And we have good indication of fairing jettison. And this first burn of today's mission will last approximately 6 minutes 15 seconds.
Donc les bandes en fait ça vient de chez eux, hein, c'est pas de chez moi. Tant mieux, moi j'essaie de régler les trucs. Donc on a déjà le deuxième étage, ah oui, il y a eu la séparation, on l'a pas vraiment vu, la vue informatique bug un peu. Donc là on est en miles, hein, on n'est pas en km/h. Vous avez l'altitude, la vélocité, donc simplement la vitesse, le downrange et simplement l'heure aussi. L'heure elle est en UTC, donc c'est comme l'heure sur la station spatiale internationale, donc 2 heures de moins qu'ici. L'inclinaison, l'apogée, donc l'apogée est à 100 km, donc là on est déjà à 100 km d'altitude. On a à peine 6 minutes, 5-6 minutes. Je vais essayer de calculer pour vous convertir les miles en km/h. C'est vrai que c'est un petit peu énervant, c'est la conversion du système américain. C'est leur système de mesure. Donc c'est 104 miles, donc c'est plus que déjà...
Engine performance continues to look good, seeing stable feedline pressures on both fuel and oxidizer systems and good chamber pressure.
Donc on est à 105 miles, ce qui fait 168 km d'altitude, 169 km d'altitude déjà, pour le deuxième étage qui va brûler longtemps. Hein. Il me semble que c'est moins plus de 35-40 minutes, donc je pense qu'on va rester ensemble quand même. Jusqu'à la fin, de toute façon là il sera dispo en replay, pour ceux qui n'ont pas le temps de tout regarder, je peux tout à fait le concevoir, le comprendre. Je vais faire une petite pause juste après, donc je vais couper mon micro, de toute façon je vous laisserai les images et puis évidemment le son de la NASA, mais je pense que là, très clairement, il va pas se passer grand chose d'ici quelques minutes. Je vais voir si je peux trouver quand même le profil de la mission détaillé en fait en chiffres, avec l'ensemble des étapes. Launch info, on va faire ça.
Battery currents and voltages all remaining very stable throughout this first burn, and
non, j'ai pas ça
body
ici.
rate on the second stage remaining very stable as well. Now passing 8 minutes into flight.
Je reviens les amis, ne bougez pas, je reviens dans une minute.
And at 8 minutes 54 seconds into flight, now approximately 2 minutes remaining in the first burn of the second stage. Continuing to see very good performance on the second stage engine. Very stable fuel and oxidizer feedline pressures, hydraulic system pressure. helium bottle pressure decay profile appears to be within family. Now 9 minutes, 30 seconds into flight. Approximately 1 minute remaining until SECO 1. Now passing 10 minutes, 20 seconds into flight. Seeing a slight decay in the thrust chamber pressure and fuel and oxidizer feed line pressures as to be expected for the later portion of the first burn. And standing by for engine cutoff in approximately 10 seconds. Now passing 11 minutes into flight, and we have SECO. Second stage engine cutoff. Body rates damping out well after the transients from the shutdown event.
So there you heard the United Launch Alliance launch commentator, Patrick Moore, taking you through the first 11 minutes. As you said, Mick, a lot of work, still a lot to go.
Absolutely, Joshua. You know, the team has done a fantabulous job to get here today. I can't even speak. It's I'm just
that's how exciting it is.
Yeah, I'm emotional here and exciting, but there is still a lot to go to be done to get us to spacecraft separation. As we just heard, we had SECO 1, second stage engine cutoff number 1. We're entering a long coast now, and then we'll get ready for second stage start for about 6 seconds to put ICESat on its final trajectory.
Yeah, in the meantime, we're going to send it back over to Stephanie to unpack more of the science and the research that we're doing as part of the ICESat 2 mission. Stephanie, back to you.
Thank you both. ICESat 2 is the next step in NASA's plan to study the cryosphere. Chris Gersh recently spoke with Deputy Project Scientist Tom Newman to discuss how ICESat 2 will measure the height of a changing Earth, one laser pulse at a time.
So Tom, you know, NASA's been studying the cryosphere for a long time, and ICESat is really sort of the main mission in studying the cryosphere. Tell me a little bit about ICESat.
The first ICESat launched in 2003 and it was on orbit.
Oh les amis. Alors là ils expliquent ICESat 1. Je sais pas jusqu'à quand on va être ensemble. Je pense qu'on va quand même être ensemble jusqu'au moment où ICESat 2 sera mis en orbite, ainsi que les cubesats, ainsi que le déploiement des cubesats. Excusez-moi, j'ai pris une petite pause quand même. J'ai le droit à une pause comme tout le monde. J'ai essayé d'avoir des infos un peu plus précises sur Twitter au niveau du déroulé du lancement, quand même, c'est ce qui nous intéresse le plus aujourd'hui. Alors. Donc la coiffe s'était larguée aussi. Et le deuxième étage s'est éteint. Donc vous avez dû voir l'extinction du second étage. Je ne l'ai pas commenté. Je vais peut-être baisser un petit peu leur son parce que franchement on s'en fiche concrètement. Enfin moi je vais baisser de mon côté. Le second étage s'est éteint une première fois comme prévu. L'ensemble est sur une orbite préliminaire. Donc le moteur sera allumé d'ici 35 minutes. Donc d'ici 15h48 on aura l'image du second étage. Puis certainement la mise en orbite. Donc on a hâte évidemment que ça se fasse. En attendant, je vais vous laisser évidemment regarder tout ça. Donc, Là, vous avez les résultats, je crois, du premier ICESat qui a été lancé en 2003 ou 2004. J'ai pas bien entendu juste avant, donc on peut rectifier dans les commentaires. Sur le chat.
Any ground instruments that you use to measure the elevation?
You know, places like Greenland and Antarctica are huge. You can't really credibly cover much of that on the ground. They're simply too big. But an actual question is, how do you know that the measurements from the aircraft or from the spacecraft are correct? So what we've done is go to Antarctica, near the South Pole, where all of the ground tracks from ICESat-2 converge. ICESat-2 will be on orbit. It goes up to 88 degrees north and 88 degrees south around the Earth.
Une orbite à 88 degrés, hein. Donc orbite polaire, comme j'ai dit tout à l'heure, pour ICESat-2.
Of about 300 kilometers of the ice sheet. Now, that survey is going to be one of our main reference data sets. So when ICESat-2 passes overhead and gives us some data from that area, we can compare the two and see how we're doing. Similarly, IceBridge, the aircraft campaign, flies over that same stretch of Antarctica, so we can compare the ground-based to the airborne to the spacecraft.
Now, I understand ICESat-2 is a much better satellite and a much better instrument on board. Tell me the difference between ICESat-2 and then the original ICESat mission.
You know, with the original ICESat, we had never done that before, have a laser in space to measure changes in ice sheets, and we learned a ton. We learned that the main action is around the edges of the ice sheets, but as importantly, we also learned that we could monitor sea ice with that. And by measuring the height of sea ice and comparing it with the height
Regardez la fonte, comment c'est impressionnant. En bleu, on a l'eau, et puis en bleu foncé, en fait, l'eau, et puis en blanc, la glace.
So for ICESat-2, we use those lessons, and ICESat-2 will do a much better job of measuring changing glaciers around the edges where it's rough and it's steep, as well as measuring sea ice freeboard as that way to get at the thickness of the sea ice.
In addition to the cryosphere, I understand ICESat-2 is going to be taking elevations of a number of areas around the globe. What are some other things ICESat-2 can do?
So from the vantage point of space, you really see the whole planet. Although ICESat-2 is really designed to measure changes in the cryosphere, the ice sheets and sea ice, from the vantage point of space, you see forests. We'll measure the height of oceans, height of deserts, all over the whole planet. We have data products that cover each of those different types of surfaces. We have vegetation data.
Et aussi le reste de la planète, hein, comme vous pouvez voir. Ça n'étudie pas que les pôles.
So the other targets are secondary, but we think they're going to be really useful for those communities.
So is it fair to say that with ICESat and IceBridge and ICESat-2, will you be able to predict down the road, I mean, just how much the poles and how much ice is melting and how much of the ocean levels are increasing over time?
Absolutely. So with ICESat-1 and now with ICESat-2, we'll be able to measure those changes in ice sheets and measure how much mass is being gained or lost in different places and how that's affecting sea level. But you bring up a good point that our data will allow ice sheet modelers to make better predictions of the future. And the way they do that is by comparing their model prediction for right now with our data. So if a model is predicting that a glacier is changing this fast or that fast, they can compare their prediction with our data to see how the model is doing. And by calibrating their models with data, it gives us more confidence in their predictions going forward. When they're predicting out 100 years or 200 years, if you're getting the modern changes right, gives you confidence looking ahead.
We are about 17 minutes into the flight of the Delta II rocket carrying ICESat-2 into orbit. Our Tori McClendon had the opportunity to speak with NASA ICESat-2 program scientist Tom Wagner to understand why we study the polar regions of our home planet.
Thanks, Stephanie. So Tom, what exactly is ICESat-2?
ICESat-2 is a laser altimeter in space, orbiting the entire Earth, but it's optimized to study the Earth's polar regions.
So why is it so important for us to study the Earth's polar regions?
I know they can seem so far away, but the fact is the change that it's occurring there affects the entire planet. Loss of things like the
Là, vous avez des explications un peu plus claires par simplement un scientifique qui travaille pour ICESat. Mais grosso modo, c'est ce que je vous ai expliqué jusqu'à présent. Hein. Mais je vous laisse quand même écouter, c'est important et intéressant.
And ICESat-2 has been optimized specifically to capture those changes with things like its 6 beams and its orbit.
So what exactly is the difference between ICESat and ICESat 2? I think you touched on it a little bit.
So ICESat was a laser altimeter that was in orbit from 2003 to 2009. It had a single laser beam.
Donc entre 2003 et 2009, le premier ICESat, son activité.
ICESat 2 has got 6 beams, so it's going to give us a lot more data. And on top of that, the lasers fire at a much higher repetition rate, so we're going to get a lot more data in each of those beams. When we put all that together, we're hoping to much more strongly tie the changes that are occurring in the polar regions with the climate drivers.
So what about you personally? You've been working on this mission for about 10 years now, is that right?
I have, and some of my colleagues have been working on it for even longer.
So how excited are you to be here now on launch day?
So everybody is ecstatic to be here. A lot of people on the team even brought their families along. But what we're also excited about is that since we've been working on it so long, we're starting to realize that there's going to be a lot of other uses for the data beyond even what we have planned. So stay tuned for some exciting science.
We're all looking forward to it. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Back to you, Stephanie.
ICESat 2 was launched into space by the last Delta II built by United Launch Alliance. Launch commentator Mick Waltman from NASA's Launch Services program had the opportunity to visit the ULA plant factory in Decatur, Alabama, to speak with 31-year veteran Dana Vandersal about the legacy of the Delta II.
Donc là on est à ULA, donc l'une des usines de l'entreprise United Launch Alliance qui a construit, qui a conçu les différentes fusées Delta, dont la dernière Delta 2 qui a décollé tout à l'heure.
Can you tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got started in this business?
I got started at the very beginning, a little prior to Delta II in Pueblo, Colorado. Started in Pueblo, Colorado. We started with the last of the 6 Delta 1s was coming back from where President Reagan had decided that we needed to bring back Atlas and Delta again from the shuttle explosion. And then we did the last 6 Delta 1s.
Ça devait être la Delta 1, si je dis pas de bêtises. La Delta 2, avec la version 9 booster.
So it was a kind of a conglomeration of Delta 1 and Delta 2. In Pueblo, we built about 120 Delta 2s in Pueblo, and we transitioned here in 2004, and we built another 30 or so Delta 2s here.
Yeah, you talked a little about Pueblo, Colorado, right? The early Deltas or Thor missions, which Delta had evolved from, were built in the Huntington Beach, California area, and then in Pueblo, Colorado. And then you talk a little bit about transition here to Decatur, Alabama, where the Delta 2s were made, right? Final Delta 2, ICESat 2, that's out there on the pad. That's got to be really exciting, historic mission for us at NASA and for United Launch Alliance. Share a little bit about what you've done to prepare that vehicle for its final launch.
Well, first off, I'm very, very fortunate to have been able to work on every single Delta 2. And to prepare that launch, we took extra care on the last 4. We weren't in full bore production, so we took extra time, and the last 4 were very special to us, and we spent adequate time, and they were special. We knew they were the last ones.
You know, McDonnell Douglas, who started the Thor Delta 2s, Boeing, and then now United Launch Alliance, unique thing they did, right? You work in the production area, but whenever there were problems at the pad, you guys got to travel down to the launch pads and do repairs on the vehicle as production engineers, right? So tell me a little bit how that was, going to the East Coast at Complex 17 and the West Coast at Space Launch Complex 2.
Oh, it was a great experience, and they did that because we were experienced with the build problems, and we put in all the parts. So the thinking was, if it's more than a simple change, we'll just get the guys out that normally do it and keep that experience base. So it was spectacular when you go out to the launch sites to get to work on a launch site. It was really special. Awesome. And the whole group, we were always kind of a small group, so we really weren't like a job or anything. We were like a family.
That was unique. You were sharing some stories with me earlier about how small the group was.
Là, vous avez toutes les deltas en miniature. Il y avait aussi des... J'ai cru voir des fusées d'Atlas. J'ai cru voir des Atlas qui transporteront la CST sans Starliner de Boeing. Mais peut-être que je me trompe, mais ça avait le même design.
There's a lot of memories with it, and you guys took a lot of pride in the work you did. You mentioned you took a little bit longer time on these last 4. You know, NASA bought these last 4 in 2012 for our 4 missions, OCO2, the Orbiting Carbon Observatory, SMAP, or Soil Moisture Mission, and JPSS-1, our Joint Polar Satellite. And now, of course, our last one, ICESat 2, which is our ice monitor, we're excited to have Delta II launching these, and you know, it's been a workhorse for NASA over the years. And reliability, let's talk a little bit about reliability. Delta II is one of the more reliable rockets that's out there, right? You guys hold the world record for most successful launches in a row.
That's true, and we're very proud of that. And one of the things that helped us get there was science missions. To me personally, science missions were very personal because I knew many, many times that it would take 30, 40 years for the technology to mature before you could get a good satellite up to do what you wanted to prove. We knew that when we'd meet the scientists and stuff, they'd come and look at the launch vehicle. They had all their budget, their whole career was tied up in this one launch. So we would try to make them as perfect as possible, and we would be kind of OCD going over them and checking them. I'd drive people nuts, but our team, we'd put them together and we'd just try to make the best product we could. And in the science arena, she's done probably 50-some science missions. 8 or 9 of those have gone to Mars. I mean, when you get years ago, when you're working on a Mars mission, you're like, wow, this is special. It's very special.
You know, we talked a little bit about that world record. I had mentioned that earlier, and you know, when ICESat 2 launches, that will be the 100th successful launch of a Delta II. That's got to be exciting for the folks at United Launch Alliance and yourself as part of the production team.
Yes, it is. It's quite an accomplishment. We're happy and we're thrilled, and we're all looking forward to that 100th mission. Go Delta II.
The primary instrument on ICESat 2 is the Advanced Topographic Laser Altimeter System, known as ATLAS. Blair Allen spoke with the ICESat 2 Instrument Project Manager, Danya Douglas Bradshaw.
Danya, a lot has been made about the improvements between the ICESat mission and the ICESat 2 mission. You've been working primarily with the instrument, the ATLAS instrument. What is the ATLAS instrument, and what are the improvements that instrument?
Laser altimeter. It's an instrument that is about the size of a smart car, weighs about 1/2 ton, and it has 2 lasers. I like to call it a sophisticated stopwatch. It can measure the changes in ice elevation down to the width of a number 2 pencil. And the lasers actually fire from, let's say, the distance from Washington, D.C. to Cleveland in 3.3 milliseconds.
Now, it's funny because that seems like it would have to be a powerful laser to reach that distance. But what I've heard is that it's a low-power laser. How is this possible?
You can describe it as a high-power laser and a low-power laser. It's relatively a high-power laser, but we spread the beam out so that when it reaches the ground, the energy density is much lower.
Is that done for safety reasons? Because I was wondering if I happen to be standing in the path of ICESat 2 when it's flying, would I be damaged if you were measuring my height on the Earth's surface?
No, it's safe for the public. It's been designed such that there's no risk to the public at all.
So the ATLAS laser is very sophisticated. How does it actually get better or more data for the ICESat 2 mission?
Sure. One of the differences between ICESat and ICESat 2 is that ICESat 2 splits the laser into 6 beams. That allows us to cover a larger area, and it also allows us to have more discrete measurements along the ground, which gives us higher granularity and data in those measurements.
So obviously ICESat 2 not only is using this more sophisticated instrument, but it's getting a significant higher amount of data.
Yes.
So how do you process the data on the spacecraft and get it to the ground stations?
Oh, that's pretty exciting. I love talking about this because it's pretty interesting. So we have a very sophisticated, I like to call it, map on board. It's actually the digital elevation model. And our receiver algorithm team.
J'ai pas vu ton commentaire, Phoenix. Salut à toi, les gens sur place sont fait troller par la météo, trop de nuages pour suivre. Le lancement de la caméra infrarouge de la NASA semble être la seule à avoir vu quoi que ce soit. J'avais pas fait gaffe à la météo là-bas, mais de toute façon c'est nuit et les gens vont pas se lever nécessairement pour un lancement, surtout à 4h, surtout à 6h ou 4h, 5h du matin, enfin, surtout un samedi quoi. Mais c'est vrai que c'est dommage pour eux quoi, c'est préjudiciable.
So if you are taking measurement over a flat surface, a relatively flat surface, then you would need less data than if you were taking a measurement over a surface that had a lot more differences in the terrain.
Now, is that primarily because you just don't want to generate a lot of extra data that's repetitive, or is that more of a capability issue? It would put strain on the instrument to basically take a new survey every time it flies over.
It doesn't necessarily put strain on the instrument, so the instrument actually collects the data. The difference is that the instrument itself is smart enough to know what data needs to be downlinked. And the reason why that's important is because our data is stored on the spacecraft, on the observatory, and there's not infinite space. So you need to be very strategic, and not only the data that you collect, but the data that you downlink, because there are resource constraints.
There's so much to be impressed about with regard to Atlas and ICESat 2, but what are you most proud of?
When I think about it, there are three things that I'm proud about with respect to Atlas. It's one of the largest and most sophisticated instruments that's been built here in-house at Goddard. It took a large team in order to build that instrument. We had about 350 people, and I can say that it's one of the best teams that I've ever worked with.
We are now about 30 minutes into the flight of Delta II carrying NASA's ICESat-2 spacecraft. Let's go back to NASA's Joshua Santora for more.
Hey, thank you, Stephanie. A great initial series of events. We've got a few more things to come. I'm now joined by Scott Messer, who is the United Launch Alliance Program Manager for NASA missions, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Scott, congratulations to you, and thanks for joining me this morning.
Thank you very much.
So tell me about the mission so far. Obviously, we're not done. Well, there's still more to come, but how have things gone so far? Has it been according to plan?
It has. Everything so far looks really well. The trajectory was good. All of the timing of events were well, and so far it's a very nominal mission. We're very excited.
Awesome. And so what's coming up now? Obviously, we say we're not done yet. What else is there left to do this morning?
Well, so we've got one more one more firing of the second stage, and then we'll have
voilà, on en est le lanceur actuellement, donc vraiment en orbite totale. Il n'y a pas eu de nouveau rallumage du moteur, donc on en est actuellement à 249 miles. Donc c'est dire qu'on est déjà à 400 km d'altitude, rien qu'en utilisant l'orbite sans utiliser de carburant. Une périgée de 90 miles, donc ce qui fait voilà, 128 km d'altitude au plus bas et 400 au plus haut, au point le plus haut de l'orbite. Donc c'est sans cesse recalculé évidemment du fait que ça va encore augmenter. Il reste encore 100 km avant d'atteindre l'orbite désirée. Hein. Je vous rappelle que l'orbite définie c'est 496 km d'altitude, donc approximativement 500 km d'altitude, donc une orbite basse. Et donc là on n'est plus très loin de rallumer le second étage. Je vais essayer d'avoir des news un peu plus approfondies sur la question.
So, a lot of good stuff to come.
Awesome. And so thinking about the Delta II retiring, it's not the only rocket in the ULA family of rockets. So what's the future look like for ULA and providing service to spacecraft customers?
Yeah, so certainly we've got a full manifest next year and the rest of this year actually with our Atlas and Delta IV rockets.
Ok, excuse-moi s'il y a un peu de bruit derrière. Hein.
Got Vulcan coming online in 2020. That'll be a very exciting new vehicle and a lot of good stuff, exciting stuff for ULA coming up.
Awesome.
Pour l'instant, on en est à là.
Voilà. Again, we'll continue to monitor the progress of the spacecraft as we continue towards spacecraft separation. Congratulations to the ULA team, and Stephanie, we'll send it back to you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joshua and Scott. Partnerships are very important to all NASA missions, and ICESat-2 is no exception. Joining us now is Franklin Fitzgerald to talk about the benefit of partnerships with companies like Northrop Grumman.
Thank you, Stephanie. As Stephanie said, we're talking about partnerships, and Northrop Grumman
Je vais vous laisser encore une fois écouter ça, puis on se retrouvera au moment où ça bougera un peu plus au niveau du réallumage du second étage, et puis du déploiement du satellite et des différents cubesats. Je vais essayer de trouver des infos justement là sur les cubesats, de quoi ils sont, pourquoi ils ont lancé des cubesats en plus, et à quoi ils vont servir dans la mission, dans le cœur de la mission. À tout de suite.
Also the guidance and navigation and control SIRU that Northrop Grumman makes as well. We're pretty involved in that.
Now this bus called the Leo Star 3, right, is basically the infrastructure, the body of the ICESat, and this is a tried and true satellite for Northrop Grumman, is it not?
That's correct. We've made quite a number of these buses over the past, specifically for NASA. These are the middle-sized science, high-pointing buses. Specifically, the satellite is designed, the satellite bus, to point the instrument. So we have the wheels and the tanks and the propulsion that allow us to point the science instrument exactly where the scientists want it to go.
Speaking of tried and true, the Delta II vehicle, you've had some partnerships with ULA on that. Tell us about that.
We have actually, Northrop Grumman and its predecessors have been making the GEMS, the graphite epoxy motors, for many, many years. Actually, it turns out that the 4 that we just saw jettisoned after launch, that went very well. You know, we've made, I think, about 1,000 of those strap-on boosters.
Now, partnerships right now and into the future, can you tell us a little bit about them before we get off?
Sure. We have and continue to be part of the cargo resupply mission for the International Space Station. That's probably one of our biggest efforts and has been highly successful. We also, though, are looking forward to the next version of that, the next contract for that's coming up, as well as we have and continue to make these large to medium science spacecraft. Currently, we launched Lancet 8, what was called LDCM, and now we're going to be working on, as we go forward, Lancet 9 and the JPSS mission.
Joe Whitaker, Northrop Grumman, Chief Engineer for the Space Systems Group, thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you, Franklin.
Stephanie, back to you.
Thank you, Franklin. Our Tori McClendon had the opportunity to speak with NASA's Director of Earth Flight Projects, Kathy Richardson. She was able to fill us in about why ICESat-2 is so important and how it fits in with NASA's other Earth science programs.
Thanks, Stephanie. So, Kathy, you oversee the Earth Science Projects Division at Goddard. Can you talk a little bit about your role?
Sure. So I'm the Deputy Program Manager, which means that at Goddard Space Flight Center, I'm responsible for all of the Earth science missions that are managed out of Goddard. So we have multiple missions. We have missions that are just in formulation, as well as implementation and operations. And of course, ICESat-2 falls under our program office.
So of course, your role does not end at launch. Can you talk a little bit about what happens after the spacecraft gets into orbit?
Right, so the spacecraft will have about 60 days where it's going through its commissioning phase. Once that happens, it'll go into its operational phase. And then we have a whole other organization that makes sure that they take care of it and that it's runs safely on orbit, and then it provides all of the data that it needs to. We also have an organization that collects all of the data, processes the data, archives it, and then distributes it to multiple users across the world.
So this mission has been, what, 10 years in the making?
At least 10 years. We've been working on it for quite some time, yes. And we've had multiple people who've worked on it for 10 years, even longer, trying to make sure that the whole thing comes together well.
And you yourself had a different role in this mission earlier on, is that right?
That's right. So for about 3 years, I was the instrument project manager, which meant that I was responsible for Atlas, which is the only instrument on ICESat-2. So that was really exciting for me.
So how excited are you to finally be here?
Absolutely very excited. So not only do I get to be here because of my current role in the program office, being able to oversee ICESat-2, but it certainly is very personal for me since I spent so much time working with the team and being able to launch. Seeing it all happen today is just really exciting.
I can only imagine. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
With that, we'll go back to you, Stephanie.
Has today's launch made you want to learn more about NASA? Well, Kennedy Space Center recently launched a new podcast series to give you behind-the-scenes look at what goes on. Today's launch director, Tim Dunn, and launch commentator, Mick Waltman, joined in on the fun.
I am the launch director for the Launch Services Program, and so
Sounds like a pretty cool job.
It does?
It is. One of my favorite shows growing up was Star Trek, the original.
Awesome.
The original. Awesome. Unfortunately, you will hear Tim wanted to be a certain character. I believe his name was Captain Kirk.
Captain Kirk. Who didn't want to be Captain Kirk?
That's a good question.
Well, that was me. I wanted to be Scotty. So.
It's all rockets all the time. Saddle up for our rocket roundup in this month's episode.
We are
looking guys in that Rider Ranch promo.
Yeah, I think Tim and I look really good there.
Oh,
but,
it's only because I was out of frame. I didn't want to steal anything from you.
But you know, Josh, you made that really fun. I think that's a great way to get space information out to the public and share. And I'll tell you, Tim and I had a great time doing that podcast with you, and we're looking forward to seeing that and how it gets out and enthusiastic, excitement for people.
Yeah, that's something that I think people may not know just about engineers in general, about people who work here in general. People probably have a perception, I hope they have a perception, that NASA is a great place to work. And when you get around guys like you and Tim Dunn, the energy is infectious.
I appreciate that.
You can't hide it, man.
I appreciate that.
It's something that we love, and it gets me fired up, and it gets me excited to be here.
I tell you, we talked about teamwork earlier. I appreciate you saying that. It's Tim and I get very excited about the rockets we work with and the team we work with. It does take a team, and we talked about that, to do everything in this business. And being part of the Launch Services Program team and the United Launch Alliance team and the teams that launch these missions for the NASA agency is just really exciting. It's a passion we all have. And I think if you visit us at Launch Services Program or anybody that's in this business, one of the things that you will see is that passion and that positive aura around them, because they love their job. I mean, we love getting up and coming to work every day to do just exactly what we did today, which was get ICESat 2 on its way and get this final Delta II lifted off. As I said, it was emotional. You and I were talking a little bit off camera, and I'm still feeling a little nervous waiting for spacecraft separation, but watching that final Delta II lift off was just amazing. This week Tim has actually been running around at all of our launch readiness reviews, talking to everybody that's here, asking them what their Delta number is. We talked a little bit about that. I think Stephanie mentioned that the vehicles have been sequentially numbered since they started in the 60s.
Right.
And Tim's been asking. So my number is Delta 294.
294. And that's the whole Delta family. It's not just Delta 2s, just to make sure it's clear to our viewers.
That's correct. That's the Delta family dating back from 1960 to present.
On se retrouve les amis. Bon, évidemment on est un peu moins, forcément on est un peu moins dans la hype du lancement. Mais je pense qu'on va pas tarder à avoir des news intéressantes. On est déjà à 253 miles d'apogée, ce qui fait qu'on est à 407 km d'altitude. Bon, c'est très lent, c'est quand même très lent. Je ne sais pas encore pour combien de temps on en a, pour être précis, au niveau du second étage. Attendez, je vais juste augmenter. Rehausser le micro, ce sera mieux pour vous. Pour l'instant j'ai pas de news plus que ça. Merci en tout cas pour tous vos pouces bleus, tout votre soutien. Le live sera bien évidemment dispo en replay. Ça fait déjà 1h27 qu'on est ensemble. 1h27 de live. Donc voilà, ça fera un live assez long sur la chaîne. Je vais regarder pour combien de temps on en a encore.
I really wasn't sure what the number meant at first because I'm new to the Delta family.
Yes.
So this is my first time really working launch, especially in capacity like this where I'm on console. And so I'm a 381. So Delta 2, flight 155, launching ICESat 2 is my first Delta mission. So I'm a 381.
Well, you know what? As Tim said, the Delta family is large, even with this final mission that we just had. I want to welcome you to the Delta family.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
As a 381, and as a token of my appreciation that hopefully you have many more launches, I think I'd like to pass on my Delta 2 pin
I appreciate that.
to you and welcome you to the Delta 2 family, my friend.
Hey, Mick, I appreciate this very much. I can't tell you how great it's been to work with you this week and getting ready for this launch. Congratulations to you. I know that you actually are a part of NASA's Launch Services Program. We'll kind of dive into what you all do in a little bit later on in the show. Stay tuned later in the show. Not only do we have, here in about 4 minutes or so, we have the second burn of the second stage to get ready for spacecraft separation. On screen there you see an animation of the second stage and the spacecraft there, still on their way. I believe that spacecraft has now, we launched going nearly due south. We have, I believe we've already passed over Antarctica, and we're now coming up towards Africa. So pretty interesting to think about the orbital path of this.
Yeah, we're hoping that, or we should be seeing when we get up to this T+47 minute, starting up the second stage engine and then heading over Madagascar for separation.
Yeah, so can you talk about why we have multiple second stage burns? That was one of my, again, being new to the family, you got to ask these kinds of questions, learning about orbital mechanics and things. Why have multiple burns of the second stage? Why not just fire one single burn and get where you're going?
Yeah, so tonight's mission was a 2-burn mission for the primary spacecraft ICESat 2. The first burn got us into that initial orbit of a circular/polar orbit for us, right? This 7-second burn coming up is going to be that last little burn that gives us the velocity and boost to get ICESat on its way, making some slight increase.
Je vous reprends dès qu'on a un réallumage, hein, vous inquiétez pas.
Second stage engine will ignite to start the second burn.
We're listening now to an update that's coming in. I believe that's Patrick Moore's voice. He's giving us an update. We're about 3 minutes away from that second stage burn. So we're just trying to make sure we're staying up to speed on the updates.
3 minutes du réallumage. Donc à 15h50, on aura un réallumage et puis je pense qu'on va pas tarder à atteindre l'orbite visée. Donc on va bientôt se quitter du coup. Ça aura fait un live assez long. J'ai 1h29, j'arrive à le voir aussi d'ici, j'avais pas vu. 1h30 de direct, déjà, voilà, on est à 1h30 tout pile. Donc on va rester ensemble quand même pour la fin de cette phase où le moteur du second étage est éteint et on va pas tarder à avoir le réallumage.
We're taking a path, I think Stephanie mentioned this earlier, where we're going to cross over the same piece of land with our spacecraft, ICESat-2, the exact same piece of land every 91 days, which requires a very precise orbit.
Yes, and Delta II will provide that. I have total faith in this vehicle and what it's done over the years, and we will put the spacecraft where they need to be to be able to perform that science. And I think it's just amazing that we can see every part of the Earth in that short period of time and take measurements down to the millimeter level of our ice caps. And that's just, you know, we enjoy the rockets, but the science behind it is also exciting. And those guys that work the science missions on the spacecraft spend a lot of years of their lives putting this together and doing it. And it's just amazing to be part of that group to get these things going and this history that we're putting together for Mother Earth.
Yeah, so the orbital path today will take us over the eastern part of Africa. We deploy our spacecraft near Madagascar, and then we'll travel over the eastern part of Europe, and then we'll travel up and over Earth. And actually, the end of this cycle will travel just to the west of where we are here. So again, the orbit jogs X number of miles to the west every orbit. And so eventually, 91 days later, it will pass over this specific spot again.
Yeah, we're basically flying north to south pole, right? And we're taking advantage of the Earth turning. And so as that does that, we stay in that polar orbit, and Earth turns, and so we get that full coverage of the Earth every 91 days. I think that's amazing. We're about 40 seconds away, I think, from second stage start, and we'll be listening to ULA's commentator Patrick Moore bring us through this as we get ready for this final burn.
Hydraulic system pressure is now coming up and standing by for ignition.
Again, you're watching an animation on your screen of the second stage in spacecraft.
And we have ignition on the second stage. Chamber pressure looks good.
Et c'est reparti, le réallumage du second étage.
Awesome. So good calls there.
Hydraulic pressure now coming back down.
Ils ont recoupé derrière, je sais pas pourquoi. Ils ont allumé 2 secondes quoi. Pour quelle raison, je ne sais pas.
Get a chance to really kind of experience what's going on up there. Mick, we've talked about this orbit around Earth but there's a lot that goes in beyond the teams that are here on the ground for launch, which are still actively working to make sure that this is a success. There's a lot of teams that are still going to be working past today to make sure that the spacecraft is successful. So tell us about what's involved nationally or globally in taking care of a spacecraft.
So we talked about those teams that are involved: Northrop Grumman, Goddard Space Flight Center. Once the ICESat gets on orbit and gets its solar arrays deployed, the teams will be taking over. There are some of them located in Maryland and some in Virginia.
Parce qu'on est encore à 407 km d'altitude, donc ça m'étonnerait qu'il éjecte le satellite tout de suite. Je vais voir si on a quelques petites news. Il s'est rallumé pour 6 secondes. Donc ok, l'orbite est correcte apparemment, donc il va y avoir une séparation du deuxième étage et du satellite, puis ensuite le déploiement des panneaux solaires et l'éjection des cubesats.
We had an incident with an animal not too long ago. Can you talk about that? Tell our viewers.
Yeah, so actually one of our sites, the Heure site that we'll be using tonight to track the vehicle, we tend to send a live video from there to make sure everything's working. And during the JPSS-1 mission, we actually had a gazelle type come up to one of our cameras and kind of give us a look and make sure everything was working there this evening. And the team ran those tests earlier this week with Heure and saw some wildlife out there also. So that's a pretty cool part of launching rockets and being part of the team.
Yeah, and I believe you said Heure is in the area of Madagascar. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So.
Sorry to put you on the spot, but I feel like that was what we talked about.
Yes.
So we just got a word.
And we're starting to see actually here in the MDC, Joshua, behind us, some video coming through of the ICESat 2 spacecraft on the front of the rocket.
We're hoping to be able to have the spacecraft separation live for you. It depends on the signal.
Absolutely.
On va avoir des images prises en direct de la séparation de la part depuis les caméras du satellite, si j'ai bien compris. Ça risque d'être plutôt sympa. Regardez, voilà, on a des images du satellite. Donc là, c'est les caméras du satellite.
Yeah, so we are expecting things to get a little rowdy behind us when we see spacecraft separation or get confirmation. There are some other control rooms where they'll be more focused, kind of making sure that we get through spacecraft health, which doesn't come until later in the countdown. So if it does get a little noisy, that's what's going on, is this excitement.
Yeah, this is, like I said earlier tonight, this is what it's all about right here, is the spacecraft and getting them on orbit to start performing their science. So this is really nice to be able to see the ICESat 2 spacecraft on the front of the second stage as it's in space, getting ready for final separation here in about a minute and 20 seconds.
Yeah, and again, just to preview some of the other parts of the countdown, or part of the launch sequence that will be coming up the flight, we'll see spacecraft separation. A little bit later, we'll have the solar arrays deploying, and we'll also have a third burn of the second stage to get us in position to deploy the cubesats, which is a big part. And then after that point, we're hearing we're going to get spacecraft health report, and that's when we're hoping to really kind of declare victory over the entire flight today.
Yeah, absolutely. Spacecraft separation is just another milestone. The teams will still be focused, waiting to hear the initial state of the spacecraft and make sure everything's good. So I think the teams are looking like they're all standing up and getting a little excited here. I think everybody's on edge, still focused on what's going on, but we're getting closer and closer here to spacecraft separation, and glad to see that we still have live video.
Yeah, we're about 20 seconds out now, so we'll kind of just stand by and watch and listen.
And standing by for spacecraft SEP shortly.
Et ça y est, on a la séparation. Séparation du satellite ICESat 2 du deuxième étage de la Delta 2. Comme on dirait, adieu, au revoir Delta 2 à la revoyure. Et donc, ça y est. Le satellite est en orbite. il est sur la bonne orbite et il va se mettre sur sa trajectoire, son bon angle pour pouvoir commencer sa mission et pouvoir opérer bien son instrument Atlas pour l'observation de la Terre, la topographie. Et voilà, maintenant à partir de là, toute l'équipe d'United Launch Alliance est rassurée puisque c'était leur job de lancer, de propulser le satellite puis de l'injecter en orbite. Eux ils ont fait leur job, maintenant ça va être à la société, à l'opérateur ICESat de faire son job, c'est-à-dire la mission. Donc félicitations ULA à la voyure Delta 2 qu'on ne verra plus voler. Et donc maintenant c'est à ICESat de faire le travail, ainsi que les nanosatellites, ainsi que les cubesats tout simplement. Donc voilà, je pense qu'on va pas tarder à se quitter, je vais juste voir ce qu'il en advient après.
Yeah, you know, the teams went through this with our NPP mission here on the west coast and Grail on the east coast. We thought that was the end of Delta 2.
J'attends d'avoir quelques petites infos supplémentaires afin qu'on puisse se quitter avec le max d'infos.
So we matched those up, and NASA's Launch Services Program was able to get OCO2, SMAP, JPSS-1, and ICESat-2 on the remaining 4 Delta 2s that ULA had. But what most people don't know is I think that they don't know that there's a 5th Delta 2 out there, or parts of a Delta 2, I should say. Most of one. We couldn't launch it, but there is some information we'd like to share on that with those parts that are available, and I think United Launch Alliance's Tori Bruno has an announcement for us.
Hello Delta 2 fans. Just because we recently watched a Delta 2 lift off for the last time doesn't mean we have to say goodbye. I'm excited to announce that the final Delta 2 rocket will soon take its place in the lineup of historic rockets located in the Rocket Garden.
Et donc la Delta 2 sera dans le Rocket Garden au Kennedy Space Center, donc avec toutes les grandes fusées Gemini, Apollo, de l'histoire de la conquête spatiale américaine. Donc c'est un bel hommage qu'ils ont fait pour ULA et puis pour Delta, pour les fusées Delta, les fusées de la famille Delta.
This program comes to a close with the final launch of NASA's ICESat-2, but its legacy will continue, and the Visitors Complex will help us keep the story of success of this much revered rocket in the hearts and minds.
Et d'ailleurs, je crois qu'ils ont mis toutes les photos des différentes missions.
Successfully delivering the first operational GPS satellite into space. Since that first launch, Delta 2 rockets have launched 154 successful missions. Its resume includes several trips to Mars, as well as
ce dont je vous parlais tout à l'heure, les missions de voyage interplanétaire. Tous les lancements, au moins vous ne serez pas resté pour rien, car là on a tous les lancements en fait de Delta 2, ils rendent hommage aux lanceurs. Je vais voir si on a quelques news en plus.
That ensure mission success each and every launch. So, the next time you are in Florida, stop by the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex and take a selfie with the Delta 2 and make sure and tag @ULA launch.
So Mick, what people just got to hear is that the fifth Delta 2, which they weren't aware of, is going to be on display, and they probably don't know either that you and Tim Dunn were a part in helping to really champion that effort.
Well, I tell you, Tim and I are very excited about that. We've been pushing for something like that for quite a while, to be able to share Delta 2 heritage with the public.
Donc l'objectif a été atteint et apparemment le second étage va rallumer son moteur d'ici 14-15 minutes puisqu'il y a encore des cubesats qui doivent être déployés. Donc je pense qu'on va encore rester ensemble une quinzaine de minutes. Ça fera un live de presque 2 heures. Mais on va rester jusqu'au bout de la diffusion, je pense, de la NASA. Puis on se quittera d'ici 15 minutes. Il faut que je vais voir quel est l'intérêt des cubesats ici.
The GPS satellites are out there that have changed the way we do business today with our phones, our computers, and all that kind of stuff. Delta 2 has been just an amazing rocket, and I'm just a little emotional to hear that announcement because I think that's just so great to have it right there where people can visit it.
Yeah, and that's a big congratulations to the entire Delta family, especially the Delta II family. I know that rocket garden is getting bigger and bigger, and it's becoming more and more beautiful. I think the more spacecraft and rockets we can add to the collection there, it's an inspiring place to be.
Oh, it is. It absolutely is. Just walking through the rocket garden and seeing all of the rockets that have come before and how we've built on those and how we've expanded and done great things as humankind. To see Shuttle Atlantis on display there is just amazing, to inspire the next generation. That's what it's all about. You know, you talked about Tim and I in your podcast and being positive and energetic, but we're really out there just trying to inspire the next generation from those that inspired us to get into this business and continue doing what we do. So I'm very happy to hear that 5th Delta II will be on display for everyone to see and touch.
Yeah, and you'll notice on screen there, you see, again, that animation. Now, obviously, the spacecraft is now out of the picture here, which is expected, and you see the second stage there with the P-pods on board. Now, it's tough to tell where those P-pods are based on there. They are in that animation, but they're pretty small. They are cubesats. We'll hear from the NASA Edge team here in just a few minutes, but before we get to that, we're going to actually track with hopefully solar array deploy announcements. I don't think we're going to get to see anything there, but we're going to get an announcement about that. And then we're also looking for the 3rd burn of the 2nd stage, which will happen here in about 10 minutes or so.
Dans 10 minutes, on aura un réallumage et puis après le déploiement des cubesats. J'ai essayé de voir sur Twitter quel était l'intérêt des cubesats pour la mission. Est-ce qu'il y a un intérêt au cœur de la mission? Est-ce que c'est une mission annexe de ICESat 2? Et je vais essayer de répondre à cette question dans quelques instants. Comme ça, vous aussi, vous le saurez. Je vous reprends tout à l'heure.
I appreciate that. October is going to be our 20th anniversary since becoming a program at Kennedy Space Center, and this is a huge year for us. We've had 6 launches on 6 different vehicles, or will have 6 launches on 6 different vehicles.
One left to go.
One left to go. We'll talk about that in a minute, but 6 launches, 6 different vehicles within 6.5, 7 months. That's a huge accomplishment for us as a program. We started the year off with GOES on an Atlas vehicle, the test mission on a Falcon 9. We then came back here to Vandenberg and launched InSight to Mars on a United Launch Alliance Atlas vehicle. And then we just recently launched Parker Solar Probe on a ULA Delta IV Heavy. You probably noticed a theme there that this ICESat 2 is our 5th of our 6 missions this year, and 4 of those 5 have been on United Launch Alliance vehicles. So again, getting back to the heritage of Delta II and reliability, we've been very pleased to partner with ULA on many of our scientific missions. And you know, once we get done this evening, the team's not done. They're actually going to move forward, and we've got to go work on Icon on the East Coast, launching off of Pegasus, our last mission for this year.
Yeah, and again, going back to just the quality of the work that your program does and that your team does, you all deal with a lot of customers, and everybody presents unique opportunities and challenges, and it's great that we have a fleet of options to choose from. It helps provide, I think you were talking about, it provides a competitive process to enable competition, to make sure that the taxpayers get the best deal, the best agreement for their money. For their money, yeah.
Absolutely. A launch services program has a fleet of vehicles that we can choose from, and part of our job is to meet with our spacecraft customers and understand their requirements and what they need, and then we take those and we look at the performance of the fleet of vehicles we have, and then we try to match up the spacecraft customer with the appropriate launch vehicle to get them on orbit to start doing their sciences. We have a great team of analysis folks, a great team of integration engineers. We just have a great team in launch services program that does that, and people are very passionate about that job and making mission success occur for their spacecraft customer.
Sure. So you are watching now live on your screen there an animation of what is the remainder of the profile for the final Delta II launch, the mission of ICESat 2. The spacecraft has separated, and we're waiting on confirmation. I haven't heard confirmation come in yet of solar array deploy. We're still waiting to hear that. And we also have the 3rd burn of the 2nd stage coming up here shortly. So we'll be keeping you up to date on what's going on with that. So can you talk a little bit about what's next for LSP? It's 20th anniversary. You guys are not resting and basking in the glory. You're working hard this year.
Yes.
So what's coming up for the future? I know that there are more big missions ahead.
Yes. So as I said, ICON is our next mission right up after ICESat 2. We'll be launching that on a Northrop Grumman Pegasus vehicle. That's a unique vehicle. It's an airdrop vehicle that launches from a modified L-1011, and we'll be doing that out of Cape Canaveral Air Force Station in Florida. But then the teams have to get, just because we finished that launch, the team still has a lot of work to do. We're working with our partners in Commercial Crew to try to get humans back on into space, since they're working with some of the same fleet of vehicles that LSP is familiar with. We have advisory missions that we're part of, that we provide analysis and engineering services for. You can think of LSP as kind of a full-service engineering firm, right? But we work for NASA. We have NASA's interest at heart, and we kind of take a look and make sure that all our scientific missions and robotic missions, and now working with our commercial crew partners, humans back to space and what needs to be done. So the team is always busy working on something, maintaining fleet insight on the launch vehicles that we have, working with new spacecraft customers. We talked earlier that we started ICESat 2 7 years ago, so we've already started working with customers who we're going to launch in 2020 and 2021. So these things don't just come together this last month of launch. It takes a full team and a long process to make sure everything fits together and is working together for mission success.
Awesome. So thinking about the NASA Launch Services Program and our other teams on the ground here working today, what is this time like? Again, you've been on console before, you kind of know what the process is like. So we talked about the intent and focus prior to launch. Is that intent and focus maintained all the way through this time? Is everybody still really dialed in on what's going on? And what are the different teams working on?
Yeah, the engineering teams are still continuing to look at the vehicle performance and looking at how it performed versus the predictions that were done prior to launch, and just doing kind of an analysis, what we call a quick look of the vehicle to make sure everything performed well. Some of the team is still following the second stage here as we wait for this burn to come up and deployment of our cubesats. We have team members looking at that. Some of the team is still following the spacecraft. We still haven't heard that solar array deploy or health check yet, but we're waiting to get that confirmation. And so the team's still focused and following that. As we saw earlier, they got to celebrate the spacecraft separation, but then they got right back and looking at the data.
Donc les amis, j'ai une info concernant les cubesats, les 4 cubesats qui accompagnent la mission ICESat 2, donc ils sont dans le deuxième étage là. Il y a des petites trappes. Ils n'ont rien à voir avec la mission, hein. J'ai une réponse de Eric Botlander, je vous conseille de la suivre. Ils profitaient juste en fait du voyage, de l'orbite qui est intéressante pour eux. Et en fait c'est des expériences de l'UCLA pour mesurer les particules chargées. Voilà, donc j'en sais pas plus. Il y a un article apparemment là-dessus qui m'a donné en même temps. C'est Helio One. Je vais traduire ça en français. C'est pour mesurer la précipitation des électrons dans les ceintures de rayonnement. Donc là, clairement, je n'en connais pas plus que vous. Mais je vais certainement vous copier le lien dans la description du live. Quand le live sera en replay, comme ça, vous saurez. Je vais le rajouter dans le descriptif de la mission, comme quoi qu'il y avait 4 cubesats qui accompagnaient ce lancement. Et puis comme ça vous aurez vraiment les infos sur toute la mission, voilà. Mais ça n'a rien à voir avec ICESat, voilà, c'est pas la mission ICESat 2. C'est une mission un peu plus mineure, disons. Donc il y a ELFIN A, mission cubique de 3U en cours de développement. Donc ELFIN A, ELFIN B. C'est des petits nanosatellites de 4 kg. Donc c'est des toutes petites charges d'emport qui pèsent rien du tout. Pour un second étage, c'est rien. Concrètement, c'est de la poussière. Et donc du coup, ça leur permet de lancer ça. Donc on a ELFIN A et ELFIN B. Alors les deux autres, je sais pas, ils sont pas sur cette page là, mais en tout cas j'ai des 4 nanosatellites avec leur descriptif de mission.
And like I said, we're going to check in with the NASA Edge team here. Once we get confirmation of that second stage burn, we're going to send it over their way to find out more about what those cubesats are. It's really interesting, again, thinking about inspiring the next generation. You're going to hear about how there are students who are creating satellites to launch into space, which is just a wild concept.
And you know, people hear about that in our education launching of NanoSat's initiative, ELFIN A, as we refer to it. And people just think it's college and universities.
Sure.
But we've actually had high schools build CubeSats. CubeSats are a unique way for students to learn project engineering, systems engineering, design, perform design reviews. NASA LSP helps some of these CubeSats with their initial PDRs or preliminary design reviews, their CDR critical design reviews, and get them through those milestones of systems engineering. And so the students get to learn that and become
arrivé à 2 heures de live. Suite à ça, donc normalement d'ici 2-3 minutes ça devrait être terminé, je pense, concrètement avec le déploiement des CubeSats.
They all have some kind of initiative that they're trying to accomplish while they're up there. And tonight, you know, our 4 CubeSats that we have on board, Dave, Dampening and Vibrations Experiment is just a unique thing where they're testing tungsten particles as part of a mass dampener. So they're actually performing science and doing something with their CubeSat, right? ELFIN A and B, which are the Electron Loss and Fields Investigation CubeSats, they're studying constellations, looking at time domain changes. Again, doing some EMI/EMC work, right? And then SurfSat is looking at charged plasma on spacecraft materials. So they're using new materials and trying to learn different things there. So these are great opportunities for kids and students to learn and provide initiatives for NASA.
Yeah, it's one thing to get to learn engineering by being hands-on. It's a whole nother thing when your learning experience results in putting a functioning spacecraft into orbit to get to do some science research that way. It's pretty sensational.
Absolutely, Joshua. It's again trying to inspire that next generation to do what they want to do, and maybe one day even come work for NASA at Launch Services Program.
Hey, it sounds like a great way to spend a career.
Absolutely.
We are now getting we should be just about 30 seconds out from our third restart of our second stage. So we'll be bringing you that, and then we are going to pass it over to find out more about those CubeSats on board today. Again, really just a cool science.
Hydraulic system pressure is coming up as expected. Pressures look good. Standing by for ignition.
Il va y avoir un réallumage du moteur pour la 3e et dernière fois avant d'éjecter les CubeSats.
And we have ignition.
On le voit pas, mais apparemment il y a eu un allumage. Voilà, allumage et coupure, donc 6 secondes comme tout à l'heure.
We had these secondary payloads in the form of CubeSats tonight. These small satellites developed through our educational launch of nanosatellites program, which gives NASA partners and students an opportunity to design, test, and fly their own small satellites. And Blair Allen from NASA Edge is with several of the team members standing by for deployment of their CubeSats on ELFIN A 18. Blair?
That's right, Mick, and we're just really glad to be here. We're going to try something very bold to go through all of the ELFIN A 18 CubeSats right now with their representatives, and starting right now with Ryan, who's representing
Donc voilà, ELFIN, dont je vous ai parlé juste avant du CubeSat.
Losses and fields investigation is a space weather mission, so we're looking to see how the sun influences the Earth's magnetosphere, and our 2 instruments, the energetic particle detector and the flux gate, you know, we'll see how quickly these storms dissipate or not, as the case may be.
Now, I understand that you were a late addition. You didn't know that you were actually going to ride on this mission. You had to do some last-minute work to get on.
That's right. Well, ELFIN A was on for the whole time, but we were able to put in ELFIN B. So that adds a whole lot of extra.
Donc ils sont en attente pour le déploiement du CubeSat.
Both spatially and temporally.
And I'm sure when you get the science from this mission, how will it be made available?
Donc normalement, ça devrait être bientôt terminé.
Scientists all over the world will be looking at it. Open data policy.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ryan. We're going to ask your colleague to step in from Cal Poly. Thanks so much for being on the show. Sorry, just bear with us in our dynamic
les coulisses du tournage.
So, Chris, you actually are from Cal Poly, and you worked on the Dave CubeSat. Tell us about Dave.
Yeah, so I worked on Dave. It's the damping and vibrations experiment from Cal Poly.
Donc on a Elfin et Dave, voilà, c'est les quatre, il y a deux Elfin et deux Dave. Et l'autre, celui-là dont il parle, il calcule les vibrations. Dave, voilà, Dave. Donc il y a Elfin et Dave, donc il y a ces deux startups, deux entreprises qui ont transmis à ULA, à United Launch Alliance, leur CubeSat pour les lancer en même temps de profiter du lancement de ICESat.
Now, Cal Poly is, we've been to Cal Poly many times, and you guys have a long history of CubeSats. How long have you been working on CubeSats?
So I'm coming up on 4 years now. I'm in my grad year, but I've been working since my sophomore year at Cal Poly.
That's awesome. Now, have you worked with any of the other CubeSats that have launched so far?
Not the ones that have launched. I've got a few coming up, but ExoCube and ISX.
Now, is there like a CubeSat Maker Hall of Fame that you can get inducted into because you've worked on so many launched CubeSats?
I don't know.
We maybe should develop that.
Yeah.
Now, one more question I got to ask about Dave, because does Dave stand for something, or is it literally, I thought it was from 2001.
Space Oddity vient de terminer son live, je poursuis ici. Ah, il vient de terminer, d'accord. Bah écoute, bienvenue à toi en SLAD d'ailleurs. En SLAD, c'est un satellite. Il nous parle vraiment depuis en SLAD, le mec. Bah, bienvenue à toi, n'hésite pas à nous rejoindre en t'abonnant à la chaîne, en likant, en partageant le live. De toute façon, moi je vais bientôt terminer. J'attendais seulement le déploiement des nanosatellites, enfin des CubeSats, donc Dave et Elfin. Je ne sais pas si Space Oddity a pu en parler au cours de son live, mais je pense que on est proche de la fin du stream, enfin de la mission globale ICESat, puis les CubeSats.
SurfSat stands for surface.
Ah bah il y a SurfSat, voilà. Donc il y a ELFIN A, B, SurfSat et Dave. Au moins on sait quels sont les 4 CubeSats qui ont été embarqués dans cette mission.
Now, another quick question. You've been involved with CubeSats how long? What's your history with the spacecraft?
It's been going on for a few years. I got brought on only the past few months to help bring it together and build it.
Did you imagine when you were filling out your application for college that before you were even done you were going to be flying actual satellites?
No, getting into it I had no idea what I'd be doing, but I love where I am.
And you got a really cool name with SurfSat. I mean, brilliant, right?
Yeah, it's an interesting name.
Yeah, love it. All right, well, I tell you what, go ahead and get back on console. We're going to bring on Sean Daly, who's going to talk about the mechanism that they use to actually deploy these CubeSats.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on the show, Sean.
Pleasure, Blair.
So listen, I see you're holding a significant piece of hardware.
Cradling.
Yes, cradling very, very delicately.
Yeah.
Now, I understand this is how the CubeSats actually make their way into space. Explain the P-Pod for us.
So P-Pod, this is one of the deployers we have. This is what we've used exclusively on Delta II up until this point, and the last time that we're going to be able to utilize it. So this is nothing more than a holder container unit. Oh, we had our first.
Oh, that's great.
All right.
Ok.
So that would have been one of the ELFIN,
L'un des CubeSats ELFIN a été déployé, a été mis en orbite, a été éjecté tout simplement du second étage. Je trouve qu'il y avait un nouveau message du tout. J'ai déconné. Donc là je pense qu'il a avec lui une copie d'un des CubeSats, donc vous voyez que c'est vraiment tout léger. Hein. C'est tout à l'heure j'ai vu pour ELFIN c'est des CubeSats de 4 kg, donc c'est très léger. Celui-là doit être un poil plus lourd, mais voilà, c'est des charges très légères hein, en comparaison.
Yeah, I don't want to, be too pushy, but this Hall of Fame idea that I just developed
Blair,
in the show,
I'm telling you,
we have to work on this because
you're gonna be in there too, buddy.
See, that was my subtle plan, but clearly you saw right.
You know, we know the truth.
Well, I'm hoping one day that I can develop a CubeSat as well. But it's not just the P-Pod. It's not just the CubeSats. You've had other partners that help this whole process because, if I understand it correctly, this process models exactly what NASA scientists and other commercial partners go through when they want to launch a satellite.
Exactly.
Tell us about those partners.
So, these students that get to work on this are going to be doing it and going to be moving in directly. When they move in from this development process and go into the second.
Et alors, encore un CubeSat de déployer. Donc ELFIN A et B ont été déployés, donc il reste Dave et l'autre dont je n'ai plus le nom que ce monsieur présente. On est à 2 heures de stream déjà.
Well, now that's interesting because you know, ELFIN, I believe, is flying in formation.
Yes, exactly
and
right.
obviously these tandem satellites and these more complex cubesats are being developed.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about what's in store for the future for these.
Man, so it's moving on. It's not just cubesats anymore. It's going to be cubesats, and along with that, they're going to be moving up to ride shares. That you're going to see those. You saw that with Tropics coming up. Also, that's a larger version. It's going to get its own mission. So that's a team of satellites working together. You're going to be moving to ride shares, which are not just a kilogram, but somewhere in the nature of 300 to 500 kilograms, and a lot of science on those, and a lot more missions coming with them.
Now, would it be fair to say that despite the growth and the opportunity that you see in the CubeSat community, that you will always maintain these little the nanos, the smaller ones, because it seems like there's tons of applications.
There definitely is, and you see it in the commercial.
On a un nouveau message. Est-ce que les CubeSats sont traités différemment des autres satellites du fait de leur taille? Par exemple, est-ce qu'on en déploie qu'en basse orbite? Il me semble que oui, mais tu as des satellites qui ont notamment Marco A et Marco B lors de la mission, je ne sais pas si tu te souviens de la façon, elle est également dispo sur la chaîne en replay. C'était le live de la mission Mars Insight, de l'atterrisseur martien qui dispose de sismomètres, notamment d'outils développés par le CNES, par de nombreuses agences comme le CNES, qui va atterrir fin novembre sur Mars, et il est accompagné de deux nanosatellites Marco A et B qui arrivent avant lui vers Mars. Donc je pense qu'en fait ils sont déployés en orbite basse et ensuite ils peuvent poursuivre leur trajet dans une orbite plus lointaine comme l'orbite GTO, voilà, pour aller ensuite dans un trajet plus lointain digne d'un trajet interplanète, quoi. Donc je pense qu'il n'y a pas de problème en soi. Mais généralement les tout petits satellites comme ça, c'est en orbite basse, hein. La majorité sont en orbite basse.
Commands were sent for solar array deploy, and those were verified. So we're just now kind of waiting to hear from them still on their positive health status once they get into the sun, and we hear that. Yeah, this was a successful Delta II mission for the ICESat 2 mission, and I believe we just got the thumbs up from our NASA launch manager to give him a call on and hear what he's got to say.
Lim on the inland net. I'm doing great. How are you doing, Joshua? Oh, am I talking to Mick now? It sounds like.
We're both here. Mick couldn't keep from saying congratulations to you as well. Tim, congratulations to you and the entire team. Obviously, a huge success today. Everything we heard was great.
Okay, tout a été réussi, il me semble, tout a été déployé.
Wow. That's really what I can say is wow. It was a thrilling day. It really was. You know, Et les ELFIN étaient les satellites de UCLA.
Donc c'est une entreprise, c'est une petite entreprise quand même qui a de nombreux abonnés sur Twitter, je viens de me rendre compte. Et en fait, ELFIN étudiera comment les électrons agissent dans notre atmosphère, donc justement la radiation du soleil, etc. Donc voilà, ça n'a rien à voir avec la mission d'ICESat. Mais on va les suivre, parce que du coup je les suivais pas sur Twitter. Donc voilà, tout est terminé pour moi, tout a été déployé. De toute façon je vous remettrai à jour le descriptif de la mission en description. Le live sera disponible en replay. Je sais que certains n'ont pas pu tout suivre, donc voilà, vous pourrez ensuite vous balader dans la timeline du live pour voir les aspects importants de la mission, les principales étapes. Donc voilà, longue vie, comment dire, rest in peace pour Delta 2, hein, à la revoyure pour la Delta 2, et on se retrouve très prochainement pour du nouveau contenu sur la chaîne. L'épisode sur Ariane 6 qui arrivera dans la semaine, il faut que je le monte, mais il est tourné, donc il faut que je le monte, et voilà, peut-être aussi pour de prochains lives. Allez, c'était Alex, on se retrouve pour de prochaines vidéos, de prochains contenus sur la chaîne. N'hésitez pas à vous abonner, à liker, à partager, et voilà, merci à vous, bon week-end.